What's up, guys? Don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment, hype up the video, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe and join the family. The story begins with memories, as an elderly man lying in a hospital bed asks him to take care of his mother and sister in his place. A woman holds something in her hand and says that today she made his favorite dish, an omelet. She has started a new part-time job, so there is no need to worry about money. All he has to do is focus on his studies. The child comments that the candy is very good. At school, someone steps on his food and says that Shuichi really dared to show his face there. People beat him and say that a weakling like him, trying to play the hero for some girl, is 100 years too early. A girl tells him that he should not anger them or worry about her, just take care of himself. A truck keeps moving until the boy realizes too late and is run over. The protagonist, lying on the ground and gravely injured, wonders if he's going to lose his life and can only think of his mother, wishing that she would forgive him for not being able to protect her. Shuichi thinks that if there is a next life, he swears that he will protect those he loves with his own hands. And as he remains sprawled on the ground, blood flows across the pavement. On another day, on the magical continent of Arcanus, someone at the altar announces that today they will conduct the annual divine blessing. Children under the age of 6 will offer their most precious possessions to the gods, and if the offering is accepted, a divine messenger will be sent. This spirit will sense the child's hidden magical element and grant them the chance to become a mage. Any child who wishes to receive the divine blessing must sign their name there. A child asks their mother if, by offering the candy they love, they can learn magic as well, and she replies that she does not think so, since it needs to be something like an expensive jewel, the kind nobles own. Someone approaches with valuable earrings, and people comment that Lady Blanc's gemstone is dazzling at first glance. The woman holding the jewel says that, of course, the more valuable the offering, the greater the chance of being blessed. A young man says he heard that the Ryan family lost their entire fortune just to receive this blessing. If they went that far and still were not blessed, that is simply tragic. Holt Ryan, head of the Ryan family, thinks that he made a huge gamble for the future of the family. Regarding Laika and Luis Ryan, the 8th child of the family, Holt believes these two are the smartest and is certain they will receive a high-level blessing. The elder calls the next one, and it is Julia. The child offers a crown, light is emitted through a magic circle, and they ask whether that is the blessing of Kahai, the god of thunder. A light moves around Julia and a voice says it is level 7. It has been 12 years since they last saw such a high level. It is an incredible talent they have been chosen. The Ryan family comments that it is an incredible talent, and that they themselves have been chosen. Julia remains standing at the center of the magic circle, but she notices something and becomes confused. A voice adds that, thinking about it, the offering was the crown of the Thunder Trail, but it does not believe that this is valuable enough to cost the Ryan family their entire fortune, and there is still another child. That legendary treasure is obviously what will be offered. Ryan straightens his son's clothes and says that he is next. The subordinate opens the box and Lucas takes out a weapon. People look on in shock as they see demonic energy emanating from the sword and ask whether it is the progenitor of magic, Vulcanus, the god of fire. Julia cheers for her brother and tells him to do his best. The elder watches and thinks that to offer something so valuable, the head of the family is truly betting everything he owns on that boy. A light envelops the sword, the sky changes color, and people say they have never seen anything like it. The head of the Ryan family wonders if that is the maximum possible level, level 9. An extremely powerful energy erupts around the boy. The sword begins to float, and above Lucas's hand, intense flames appear and climb up his body. The sword begins to disintegrate, and after that, still in the same place, the sky returns to normal. A voice asks whether the blessing has ended and where the divine spirit is, and people say to look at the altar. Lucas is still floating, wrapped in energy until something falls and the child falls with it. Julia cries intensely and runs toward him with the family. The parents ask him to wake up and ask how that happened. The elder states that the god rejected him and that Lucas was abandoned by the progenitor of magic. A butterfly passes by. In the realm of volcanoes, voices call him cursed and question how the Ryan family dared to offer the very power that nearly destroyed him. That blade still carries the mark of when it struck him, and he will never forgive this. A floating miniature exhales smoke, and the god of 10,000 flames says they should be grateful that he merely burned that child's soul into ashes. The miniature comments that it seems a soul from another world escaped into the child's body and asks whether it should burn that as well. The god of 10,000 flames replies that it is not worth wasting time extinguishing an insect from an external world, and that now they will take a look at that offering. The flame miniature says that the piece is truly beautiful. Someone stands amid the lights and an intense radiance begins to be emitted. In the realm of the martial god and the celestial source, someone with red hair emits light from his eyes. Another individual with something bound to his ankle leaps over a circle and a powerful aura is released around him. A voice calls him the source of power that governs the world and asks whether he intends to block the path to a higher dimension. A monster stares at him, opens its enormous mouth, releasing overwhelming sound and power, and then smiles. The red-haired man advances and throws a punch, opening a massive hole in the monster's body. Then an even more terrifying power is released, and the red-haired man remains standing as he completely destroys the enemy before him. A light appears in front of him, the red-haired man smiles, and a voice comments that that source of power is nothing special. The red-haired man notices another light shining, calls it Lord Martial God, and asks the accompanying spirit why he is being obstructed, saying that he feels his former partner Reku has just been destroyed. He questions what the hell is happening on the continent of Arcanus, and recalls that 1,000 years ago martial arts were superior to magic, asking whether now that damned fire god Vulcanus is the one being worshipped. The fairy replies that if he were not so obsessed with martial arts, that pathetic little god would never have gone so wildly out of control. The red-haired man says that even without her saying it, spreading the path of martial arts is already a burden heavy enough for him. Flames ignite, and the fairy states that she has no interest in nurturing him, but has the duty to pass the path onward, saying that a tiny being like him must devote himself constantly to training. A voice echoes, thinking that he can hear it, and wonders whether he has not just lost his life, and what that is. Several men are gathered around, looking at someone's face. The boy remains expressionless, and the men say that his name is Mars, the martial god, and that he will grant him the blessing of the martial god. The child is lying on the bed, still somewhat disoriented. Winged creatures say that his name is Mars, the martial god, and that he will grant the blessing of the martial god. The fairies enter his eyes, and the system notifies the granting of the martial god's blessing, level 9. The level cap for martial arts has been removed. Lucas supports himself with his hand on the ground and asks what that was just now. A level 9 martial god? Talking about spirits? Everything seemed completely fragmented. Shuichi in Lucas's body wonders what the hell is going on and thinks that this should already be over. After all, he was just run over by a truck. So why is he still alive? The protagonist begins to access some of Lucas's memories and wonders whether the gods are simply playing with him. He concludes that he is reincarnated in a world of magic and wonders how a child abandoned by the gods can end up in that situation, because that way the clan will certainly disown him, making that life even worse than the previous one. Shuichi thinks of his mother, Azusa, believing that they will be safe now. He also wonders about the martial god's blessing, since he does not even know what the hell martial arts are. A lollipop falls to the ground. Shuichi looks at it and Julia approaches, crying heavily, hugs him, and says that he woke up, stating that she heard Jeremy and the others saying that he would never awaken again, which left her extremely worried. Chi pats her head and asks her to stop crying, thinking that this girl must be Lucas's sister, and that Azusa must have been devastated after losing her life. He lost everything when he reincarnated, but not this time. In this life, he will protect everyone who is precious to him. Protect them with everything he has, relying on the power of the martial god. On the altar, a statue begins to leak a liquid from its eyes, which flows down its body and drips onto the ground. Someone is beneath that liquid and comments that the presence of that unpleasant individual has disappeared, asking whether he died or simply left this world, noting that very little energy remains. The woman stands up, licks her lips, and says that it does not matter, because without him in the way, that world will soon be theirs. 9 years later, in the Ryan family's house, someone is singing. The protagonist thinks that time has completely passed and that magical training should already be over, so he decides to go find her until Shuichi notices something strange. Suddenly, a branch coils around his body, binding him tightly. Chi thinks that only one person would do something like this: Jeremy, the fourth son of the Ryan family, a magic student with a level 5 blessing, and Lucas's half-brother. While Jeremy says with an arrogant smile that they have met again, the boy abandoned by the gods. The maid beside him asks whether he had not already been expelled, and Jeremy replies that he already warned before that the courtyard is reserved exclusively for the family's mages. The roots tighten even more around the protagonist's body, and Jeremy, still smiling, comments that maybe he will learn his lesson if a few of his ribs are broken. Shui starts shouting, saying that his sister is finishing her magic training and could come back at any second, and that if he wants to be fried until crispy by her lightning, he can keep going. Jeremy calls him a coward and says that if he had not been practically driven away, he would not be hiding behind his sister as if he were afraid of a mere little lightning bolt. In the next instant, Jeremy is struck by a violent bolt of lightning, burned and thrown to the ground. Julia approaches wielding her staff and coldly says that if he intimidates her brother one more time, she will not be gentle next time. She shoots Jeremy a furious glare and tells Chi that she will remove those vines right away. The vines fall apart, Jeremy struggles to his feet, and the protagonist asks whether he thinks he has learned his lesson, and whether he still intends to try something again. Jeremy throws an irritated look and hurriedly leaves. Shui comments that he is running away and that Julia really hit him squarely with that last shock. Julia says that if he really wanted to, he could easily beat Jeremy up himself and asks why he did not fight back. Chi replies that he already said his true strength is a secret between the two of them and that, besides, she is there to protect him. Julia agrees and Shui smiles, thinking about how many years have passed since he was reincarnated into Lucas's body. 9 years ago on the day he woke up, Lucas's father came to see him and he was sure he would be kicked out of the house for not meeting his expectations. But Holt simply hugged him and said he was very happy that he had woken up safely because that was all that truly mattered. Holt leads an order of knights and is almost never home to accompany his children. But even so, he is a good father who truly cares about him. When Holt discovered that Lucas had begun training martial arts, he immediately sent a letter with useful information and wrote that the family archive contained some old books on martial arts, hoping they would be useful for training. Thanks to that letter, Lucas was able to put a bold plan into action. A voice calls for young Master Lucas and a maid asks where he went, commenting that he is so young and yet runs off alone every day. The companion beside her says not to worry, stating that he can barely use magic and will be expelled sooner or later anyway. The two walk away chatting and comment that the ground has been trembling a lot lately, wondering whether someone might be practicing earth magic. Elsewhere, someone throws a punch against a wall, shattering it into pieces and revealing the protagonist inside a tunnel, saying that this should already be almost enough. Shui spent 6 months digging beneath his own room to build a secret training ground, dividing the space into 4 areas: a study area, a training area, a room, and a bathroom. Chi spent almost all his money on equipment for the other areas and decided that a cheap bathtub would be enough. And since finishing the training ground, he is trained down there every day in absolute secrecy. In the present time, the protagonist is in the now improved location, tossing something into a bucket. Shui enters and feels relieved, thinking that taking a medicinal bath is the most efficient way to train martial arts. 3 years have passed since he began training based on a book found in the archive called The Chaotic Tempering Technique, and now no magic attack of level 5 or lower can even leave him scratched. His defense has finally begun to take shape, and as for offense, Chi steps closer holding the sword, draws it from its sheath, and executes extremely fast and precise movements. Then he looks to the side, tosses the sword aside, and picks up the spear to train, performing flawless movements that completely destroy the training dummy. Shui releases an extremely powerful aura and thinks that he will practice his fist techniques a bit more that day. His abilities have been steadily improving over these 9 years, but there is only one thing that still bothers him. According to the books, when a martial artist reaches a certain level, they encounter a rigid limit, and the only way to surpass it is to achieve enlightenment, something so difficult that most practitioners eventually give up in despair. This is the real reason why almost no one chooses to train martial arts, even though they are in no way inferior to magic. However, in his case, the situation is different. Chi closes his eyes, clenches his fists, exhales, then opens them and strikes the punching bag in front of him, cracking the wall and shattering the bag, growing stronger and stronger until he reaches level 5. The protagonist thinks that his levels keep rising without stopping, without any sign of a limit, and concludes that this is probably what they call a divine blessing. Shui looks at the clock and realizes he is right. Holt will return home that night, and they should have dinner together as a family. Later, already at home, Chi approaches and opens the door. Holt comments that it has been half a year since they last saw each other, says he was waiting for him, and asks him to sit down. The protagonist agrees. Holt explains that the Allen Magic Academy is opening a special martial arts department that year, and that he has already enrolled him. Martial arts are difficult, but he believes Lucas can do it, and since the entrance exam will be next week, he should prepare well. Shui thanks him and thinks that no matter which world he lives in, he needs to become stronger to protect those he loves. But he has no intention of going around causing trouble unnecessarily. Julia raises her hand and says that she wants to participate in the Allen Academy Magic Showcase together with him. Holt says that it is a great goal, but reminds her that she is only 11 years old and still not old enough to enroll. Julia asks whether there is an elite class, stating that there is no age restriction, and comments that she received an offer from the academy for that class. Holt is surprised, asks whether it is true, and says that it seems her reputation as a genius has reached the Allen Academy. The wife comments that perhaps a great mage will be born from the Ryan family in the near future, while Jeremy grinds his teeth in silence. Holt says he will pray for both of them to pass the exams safely. Jeremy comments that Julia will of course succeed, and questions why Lucas is receiving special treatment, saying that if he enters the Magic Academy, it will affect his reputation. Someone pinches him and tells him to calm down, saying there is no need to worry. It is Jessica, the Ryan family's second wife and Jeremy's mother, who also comments that it is not as if he is guaranteed to pass the exam. 1 week later, the day of departure for the Magic Academy arrives. The first wife asks Lucas and Julia to take care of themselves, saying that once they are settled, she will visit them and bring their favorite dish, reminding them not to forget the lucky coin their father gave them. The coin is from the Bu-Un dynasty, which unified the world about 10,000 years ago, and was obtained when Holt subdued a magical beast. The name Mars, the first emperor, is engraved on the front, and the weapon he wielded appears on the back. The protagonist wonders about Mars and whether that face is the same powerful spirit from before. Holt tells them to always keep the coin with them as a lucky charm. Shui thinks that he was blessed with a good family in both his past life and this one, and realizes that he is truly a lucky guy. So he says that it is time to depart. A few hours later, the man driving the carriage warns that the sun will set soon and that they will camp in the clearing ahead. At night, everyone gathers around a campfire, and the subordinate comments that if they set out the next morning, they should reach the city of Daku, where the Allen Magic Academy is located, by nightfall. Julia says they arrived quite quickly and asks whether there is anything interesting in Daku City. The subordinate replies that certainly, when he thinks of Daku Town, he remembers the annual Magic Burn tournament held in spring, as well as its fame as a gourmet city. Julia is impressed, and Chi comments that she is even drooling. At that moment, the protagonist notices something strange and thinks that about 2 kilometers away, 12 horses and 13 people are approaching rapidly. He remembers that the area has bandits, although Holt said that the chances of encountering them are considered quite low. His chaotic tempering technique granted him more than just strong defense and healing ability. It also gave him extremely sharp senses, so he knows he is not imagining things. There are only 5 guards and he is still a child, so they need to deal with this carefully. So he warns that there is a mysterious group approaching quickly and orders them to enter formation. One of the guards says that he cannot hear even a bird singing and asks what he is talking about. The subordinate stands up, asks if he did not hear anything, and orders everyone to prepare their weapons immediately, thinking that he has no idea where that information came from, but it is better to be safe than sorry. Shortly after, knights come into view, and the guards comment that it has to be a joke because they are really there. The knights laugh and say they have found more prey, stating that the boss was right because well before the Allen Magic Academy exams, this region becomes infested with nobles. They comment that that little girl will be sold for a high price, and the boy beside them bets that she will be very popular with that kind of client. The subordinate, sword in hand, asks whether they have any idea what happens to people who mess with nobles. The bandit leader replies that no one cares about nobles and orders them to kill everyone except the 2 brats. The knights charge together with their swords raised, blades clashing. One of the guards has his weapon knocked to the ground and tries to react while the subordinate decapitates enemies without hesitation, telling them to leave this to him. Several villains are finished off, and the subordinate shouts for the young master to grab Julia and run. Suddenly, someone lets out a sharp scream. The guards begin to be burned by intense flames, and the subordinate realizes the danger, asking if there is a mage among them and ordering the 2 to enter the forest immediately. Even so, the subordinate is also attacked, and the protagonist rushes into the woods, pulling his sister along. The subordinate suffers a severe wound to the abdomen and continues to be surrounded by the villains. The mage calls him a wretch, saying that he killed his friend and will now be burned into ashes. The subordinate replies that he will protect the young master and the young lady, even if it costs him his own life. Shui thinks that Fordon is only a level 2 martial artist and has no way to defeat a mage, and realizes that he truly wanted to keep his real strength hidden. But Fordon has always been kinder to him than anyone besides his parents, practically like family, so he cannot just stand by and watch his family be exterminated. Chi tells his sister to hide there and says that he is going to help Fordon. Julia agrees, asks him to be careful, and moves away. Several bandits have already been eliminated. The subordinate fights against multiple enemies and ends up kneeling on the ground. An enemy tries to attack him from behind, but plasma spreads through the air and the bandit is torn apart. Everyone looks on in terror, asking what that was, but then have their heads ripped off and destroyed, falling with only a single blow each. It is the protagonist using magic, and he thinks that it is a good thing he managed to raise his wind strike to level 4 just by knocking birds out of the sky for fun, so defeating a few level 1 bandits is extremely easy. A voice shouts asking who the hell did that, and the mage realizes that everyone was eliminated in an instant, saying that then he will take the old man with him. A circle of power is unleashed, and the subordinate thinks that he does not even have the strength to dodge, but believes that thanks to whoever helped him, the children will survive, silently thanking the gods. Shui appears in front and blocks the attack, leaving the subordinate shocked when he realizes it is the young master. The mage is surprised, asking whether his fireball was cancelled, and says that he can still counterattack with an ice snake. Chi approaches at high speed and states that this is already over. The protagonist attacks and completely destroys the mage's body. The subordinate is stunned, asking how he did that, thinking that a boy instantly eliminating a high-level mage is unprecedented, and comments that he really seems to have talent for martial arts. At that moment, they notice something behind them, a gigantic and grotesque monster that emits a terrifying sound. Shui stares at the creature and thinks that he cannot let his sister see something so horrible. He needs to end this as quickly as possible. The protagonist charges at the monster with overwhelming power, and pieces of the creature are sent flying through the air. Shui stops for a moment until the monster releases chains binding the already finished bodies. Chi wonders what kind of thing that is. The protagonist observes carefully and notices a symbol engraved in the creature's eye, questioning whether that is what controls the corpses. The beast opens its enormous mouth and takes an attacking stance. Shui releases all of his power and thinks that if normal attacks do not work, he will have to try something different. The monster lunges. Chi clenches his fists and attacks with full force, striking directly at the eye with the symbol, causing a devastating impact. An extremely intense light spreads, and the monster begins to disappear, being completely burned away by the protagonist's power. Shui sits down on the ground, exhausted but relieved. Julia runs to him, hugs him tightly, and asks if he defeated all the villains, saying that he is incredible. The subordinate, still dazed, tries to understand what just happened. Soon after, still in the same place, horses neigh and someone appears riding one of them, a woman with her mouth bound. Elsewhere, in a gloomy atmosphere, a woman drinks a dark liquid and asks whether number 44 was eliminated and who managed to do it, saying that restoring her own power is now the highest priority. At night, still in the forest, Julia asks if her name is Maya Rasta. The subordinate comments that he feels he has heard that name somewhere before, and Julia says she has the same impression. The protagonist explains that this is because the Rasta family and the Ryan family are two noble houses that live near the city of Daku. Julia then asks how Maya ended up being attacked by those bandits. Maya, with tears in her eyes, replies that a few hours earlier, bandits suddenly appeared and attacked the carriage, burning the guards, who were finished off one by one, while her maid desperately tried to protect her. No matter how many times she said she was a noble, it did not matter because their goal was simply to kidnap children from noble families. Julia says that now everything is fine, since all the bandits were defeated. Shui watches the two of them, and later, still in the same place, Chi comments that they have already gone to rest and asks the subordinate what he thought about what Maya said earlier. The subordinate replies that it indicates the bandits are professionals, and that they have most likely been targeting the sons and daughters of nobles for quite some time. The protagonist adds that they were also capable of using magic, and that strange power to control the fallen. The subordinate is surprised, and Shui comments that it seems there is a terrifying demon pulling the strings behind everything. The subordinate states that he will report what happened to the master immediately, so there is no need to worry, and says that by informing the Rasta family about Lady Maya's situation, they will likely be able to secure their cooperation as well. He comments that this is a great point and, by the way, suggests a way to avoid further trouble. The next day, in the Carmina Empire, border region, city of Daku, a voice asks whether they are going to cancel the plan to stay and stroll around the city. The subordinate replies that some of yesterday's bandits may still be around and that, for safety, it is better to head straight to the Magic Academy. Julia looks visibly dejected, and the protagonist asks her to try to understand, saying that this is for her safety and Maya's. Maya agrees, and Julia lowers her head. Shui smiles and says that she wants to go to the city's gourmet street and that when they pass by later, he will buy everything she wants to eat. Julia immediately perks up upon hearing this. Maya comments that the two get along very well, and the subordinate announces that they have already entered the city, asking whether they would like to open the window to look outside. They open the window and observe the beautiful city, extremely bustling, the largest after the imperial capital. Maya says it is very lively. Julia watches everything with enthusiasm, and she thinks that it really is like that. The atmosphere of that city is very similar to the city he lived in during his past life. The two watch clowns and sweets, the protagonist buys some for them, and both eat happily. Shui smiles at the scene. After that, the horse stops moving, and the subordinate says that this is as far as he can take them. Chi says not to worry, stating that he will protect his sister. Julia replies that she will protect him as well. The protagonist says that he is counting on her, and the subordinate is moved when he sees the two of them. Maya wonders if he really has a little sister to protect him, and thinks that he is an interesting boy. The subordinate watches as they walk away. Rasta thinks that the two are very kind, is happy to have met them, and smiles. A little earlier, the subordinate had told Shui that he now remembered that Maya had once been his fiancée. The two were close and happy when they were young, but as soon as the priest carried out the demon judgment, he was discarded. It was declared that he had no talent for magic, and the engagement was dissolved. The Allen Magic Academy, south of the city of Daku, is one of the 3 most famous schools in the Carmina Empire. All freshmen must take an exam 1 year after enrollment, and based on the result, they are classified into special departments according to aptitude, such as the earth, fire, wind, and water departments. If they manage to complete the 6 years of study and graduate, they will obtain the qualification of mage. The protagonist comments that, of course, there are also exceptions for outstanding students, because any student who passes the mage certification exam while studying there can graduate early, without needing to complete all 6 years. Shui looks at his sister, and Julia says it is a shame, because she was hoping to take the entrance exam together with Maya. Chi thinks that Maya already took the exam early in the morning, accompanied by her family, and now that she is with them, she should no longer be in danger. He says that if everyone passes, they will be classmates, and will be able to see her every day. But for now, they should focus on the entrance exam, and he asks where registration is. Some voices comment that she's a cute girl and ask if she's also going to take the exam. Others say that at most she looks about 12, that her brother looks just like her, and someone comments enviously that he is a real catch. Then someone calls out to Julia, and it is Mina, the vice president of the Allen Magic Academy Student Council, who asks if Julia snuck in just to follow her older brother. Julia answers no, saying she is there to take the test along with her brother. The vice president wonders if that child is really taking the entrance exam and if she is the same girl the elite class made an offer to. Mina smiles and asks if she is Julia from the Ryan family. Julia asks how she knows her name, and the vice president replies that she will find out later, saying that for now she will show her the registration area. The protagonist thinks he seems completely invisible at that moment. Julia asks her to wait, explaining that her brother also needs to register. Mina realizes she forgot entirely and comments that if she is not mistaken, he is there for the martial arts department. People around them begin whispering, asking if she is saying there is still some idiot training martial arts coming to the Allen Magic Academy just to learn that, saying it is ridiculous. One of them tells them to stop, stating that a martial artist is, at the very least, a bit more useful than a magical beast. Shui notices the contemptuous looks and thinks it is always the same. All those mages convinced they are nobler than martial artists, as if he were some trash picker from the slums, destined to always be the loser, just like with Jeremy and that other monster. Chi thinks they are all insects, and that if it were not for his parents' good intentions, he would not be wasting time in such a decayed place. People laugh at him. The vice president realizes it was her fault for speaking too loudly, calls Lucas, and tells him to come with her because once he registers, she will show him the exam room. The protagonist notices she is one of the few people who does not look at him with prejudice and thanks her. In another place, with many people gathered, Mina explains that everyone must check in with a student council member, showing their emblems because the exam number is stored in them, and they must make sure they are wearing them when entering the room. She explains that the exam has 3 parts. First, measuring magical potential through the magic light, then a compatibility test with spirits of different attributes. Finally, a test to measure the destructive power of magic on a dummy. Shui asks if the process is the same for martial arts department candidates, and the vice president says yes, stating that to be fair, the entrance exam is the same for all departments. Chi questions this so-called fairness, or whether they simply did not bother creating a specific test for martial artists, but he says he understands and thinks that he will show them the true power of a martial artist, shattering those prejudices. At the potential measurement station, the official announces that the first test will begin, and that everyone must place their hand on the magic light one at a time. The man notices something strange and says that in all his life he has never seen anything like it, stating that it is a phenomenon that happens once every 100 years, perhaps once every 1,000 years. And the one responsible for the phenomenon is the protagonist, who thinks to himself that it is happening again. Next, it is Julia's turn, and people notice a purple light, commenting that purple indicates a potential of 7 out of 10, enough to be a top-tier student among that year's candidates. Shui thinks everyone is exaggerating and that they have no idea what they are seeing, until a voice tells Julia to restrain herself, saying she can do it. The official asks what it means to restrain herself when the light begins to change, becoming yellow and extremely intense. Everyone's eyes go wide, and the man says that it is a golden light, almost reaching the maximum value of 10. He comments that a student obtained the same golden light 2 years earlier, but Julia is much younger, which makes her a terrifying talent. Julia stays silent for a moment, then becomes completely excited, calling her brother and hugging him, asking if she is amazing, while the protagonist replies yes, saying that one day she will become an archmage. A boy comments that it is a genius mage standing next to a worthless piece of trash. But the companion beside him covers his mouth and asks if he has any idea what Julia would do if he insulted her brother in front of her, saying it is not worth turning a genius into an enemy over some random loser. Shui thinks everything is exactly as planned. Julia says that if anyone mistreats her brother, she will never forgive them. And she thinks that as long as she shows her talent, he will be able to have a peaceful school life. All the effort of the last 3 years, strengthening Julia's talent, has finally been worth it. A voice announces that the second test will begin next and that everyone must head to the spirit room. The protagonist thinks this is the moment when all his effort will truly begin to show results. A door opens and everyone enters the compatibility test room, where fairies fly through the space, leaving everyone around completely surprised. The fairies move toward Julia and everyone is stunned, saying that not a single spirit approached them, while all the spirits are going straight to her, asking if this means she has maximum compatibility with all elements. The protagonist smiles and thinks this is great, because his personalized skill is steadily increasing Julia's potential. She's still only level 2, but that is already more than enough to pass the entrance exam. A voice announces that Julia's compatibility score is 9.6, the highest among all candidates. A boy approaches to congratulate her, and Julia thanks him, but soon senses a strange energy behind her, with several people trying to get closer. Julia hugs her brother, Shui smiles, and she asks why those people are looking at her like that, saying it is a little scary. Chi pats her head and explains that she is a genius, and that from now on she will receive many looks like that, telling her not to worry about what others think and to get used to it, little by little. Julia says he is right and comments that she needs to become stronger to protect him. The protagonist replies that that is right and tells her to keep it up, thinking that he did not expect her to be so bothered by the stares, and that he will also need to work on strengthening her mentally. Some people look at him and comment that with talent like that, they thought she might be royalty, but since her brother is useless, they guess not. And they also talk about the brother's compatibility, saying it is probably 0 like before. They comment that when that guy entered the corridor, all the spirits backed away from him, looking completely disgusted, and that something strange happened after the second test ended, because the second he left, one of the fire spirit's arms simply tore itself off almost as if it were terrified. Spirits are tiny, so he must have seen it wrong. Shui hears everything they are saying. Then the protagonist thinks that it is hard to believe there was a witness during the second test, perhaps because he was abandoned by the fire god. The fire spirit's attitude was especially unpleasant, because when the test ended and he was about to leave, the spirit spat fire directly at him, holding a grudge for having almost been eliminated for so long. He thinks they are alike, but that a mere servant of the fire god has no right to act with such audacity near him. Shui calls his sister to go to the final test and asks if she thinks she can take first place again. Julia replies that as long as he does not truly exert himself, everything will be fine. Chi says he will not take it seriously, that he plans to let her protect him, and asks if she remembers. After some time in the destructive magic test, there are metal dummies. Some people comment irritably that the genius girl took first place and say they will vent their stress on the dummy, asking whether they really think that genius can break it, claiming she has no chance. A voice explains that the dummies are made of a special metal with a defensive enchantment and can withstand any attack below the curse level, adding that a child her age is incapable of unleashing an attack at that level. The protagonist thinks that the mannequin looks quite sturdy, a good opportunity to test his level 6 abilities, and reflects that being able to use expensive equipment is one of the advantages of studying at such a school. Someone tells people to stop pushing and get in line, saying the rule there is clear: those without talent go to the back and need to get out of the way. The girl who cut in line casts a terrifying glance, making the woman in front of her flinch, widen her eyes, and feel her heart race. The girl keeps walking until she notices something to the side and approaches Julia, asking if she is the girl who scored 9.6 in the compatibility test. She stares at Julia in silence, and Julia does not respond until she notices her older brother approaching and comments that the girl is scary. The protagonist asks who she is, and the girl replies that her name is Iwa Miranda, granddaughter of Duke Miranda. Shui thinks about the Mirandas and remembers that this northern imperial family is one of the 3 great houses, a clan that once produced a legendary mage. Lucas's mother, Catherine, came from the Miranda family, which means that girl is the daughter of her younger brother, Cyan Miranda. So he asks how old she is. Iwa replies that she's 15. Chi tells her not to stare at him so suspiciously since they are cousins. Iwa thinks she has never heard of having a cousin, considers the guy rude, and decides to humiliate him in front of everyone. The Miranda girl begins to release her power, thinking of making him strip right there to leave him utterly humiliated. But the protagonist remains completely unaffected, leaving Iwa indignant. Shui asks if she is using mental magic on a relative she just met and what kind of upbringing the Miranda family is providing these days. Iwa remains furious that her magic did not work and thinks that was her best technique, while Chi wonders if she really believes she could control a martial artist with such a strong will using such weak magic. A voice calls Lucas, telling him to prepare, and the protagonist realizes he needs to go. Iwa points at his sister and tells her not to get too confident, because she will be the one to take first place in that test. Shui looks at the scoreboard and sees that the Miranda girl is in second place and came to declare war on his sister, who holds first place, and thinks that for the sake of peace of mind, he cannot let her steal Julia's first place. He asks if his sister wants a candy. Julia eats it and asks what it is, then feels something strange and says it is not sweet, it is very bitter. Chi apologizes and explains that it is a special magic potion made from rare ingredients, that she will feel the effect soon, and that he will improve the taste later because now he needs to go. Julia says he said the same thing last time and that she does not believe him anymore. The protagonist runs off to take the test. The examiner tells him to attack the mannequin with all his magical power, that they will evaluate the destructive power and give a final score, and tells him he may begin. Shui replies that he cannot use magic. The examiner is confused and Chi asks if he can simply punch the dummy. People comment that the guy is going to take the destruction test by punching the mannequin, call him an idiot, and say he will probably break his hand, but then quickly cover their mouths, remembering that his sister is a genius mage standing nearby. Julia thinks that if her brother had not asked her to behave at school, she would have already kicked their asses. Aiwa wonders whether her brother really cannot use magic and finds it strange, because even her mental magic did not work on him, making it hard to believe that he truly cannot use magic. Julia says that her brother definitely cannot use magic, but that even so he is an incredible person, and thinks that, besides, no one in the world has the right to mock him. Aiwa believes there is a clear limit to a martial artist's strength and that Julia is probably being deceived by her own brother. Then, suddenly, a huge explosion echoes during the test. Aiwa looks on in confusion and shock, asking what just happened. 2 minutes earlier, at the moment of the test, the protagonist asks whether a single strike is enough. The examiner replies that it does not matter how he attacks. Shui says he understands and that he will attack, thinking that his martial arts ability grows exponentially every 3 levels, and that his strongest technique, Flash, received an absurd speed boost at level 2. Now that he has reached level 6, its power should be on a completely different tier. Chi moves in an instant, rushes at the dummy, and at the moment of impact sends it flying, causing a violent shock that completely destroys it. The smoke clears, and Aiwa realizes in astonishment that that speed is comparable to high-level wind magic, and that the dummy glowed gold, which means the attack reached the curse level. She thinks she might be the only one there capable of perceiving Lucas's true strength, and from his behavior it is clear that he is hiding his real power. The examiner comments that he got lucky, saying that this is the first time in over a decade that a dummy has been destroyed and that he will simply grant a perfect score. The protagonist thanks him and asks if he should help collect the destroyed dummy, but the examiner replies that it is not necessary since it is far too heavy and will be moved with magic. Julia watches everything on the screen and becomes extremely excited. Shui thinks that he managed to avoid a 0 and still hide his true strength, even thinking that he should thank those who underestimated him. As the tests continue, fewer and fewer students pay attention to Lucas's destructive power, while everyone becomes completely focused on his sister's magic. Julia releases a frightening aura around herself, channeling magic through her staff and creating intense pressure in the surroundings. She casts Lightning Descends, and a devastating attack comes down with overwhelming force. A voice comments that it is a red lightning bolt, the second most powerful, surpassed only by the maximum level Golden Lightning, and that it is no wonder lightning magic is considered the best for direct attacks. They say it is unbelievable that this is the power of an honor student, and that they would be satisfied if they could reach something like this by the time they graduate. Some comment that just watching makes their bodies tingle, unable to remain standing. Julia receives 9.5 points. After that, she leaves the arena and runs to her brother, saying that she used Lightning Descends and that a red lightning bolt simply fell from nowhere, leaving her completely frightened. Before that, even giving it her all, she could only conjure purple lightning, and that attack even made her own body feel more active than normal, which was strange. The protagonist only smiles, thinking that he gave her a potion capable of temporarily increasing magical power, but decides not to tell her that. In this world, both mages and martial artists have their own crafting methods. Mages brew potions, while martial artists refine elixirs. Magic potions require specific means to be ingested, but refined elixirs can be absorbed directly by the body. In the past, many powerful elixirs existed, but this art was abandoned because refinement is extremely difficult. Nowadays, almost no martial artist can create the Mage Essence Elixir, the one that increased Julia's power since it requires a martial artist at level 6 of refinement. At present, besides himself, there is only one other person capable of this, the only level 9 martial artist, the Minister of the Martial Ministry, Duke Retsuzan. It is said that even the greatest mages bow before the Duke, begging for this elixir. If anyone discovered that he could also create something so valuable, it would cause enormous trouble, so this secret must be kept at all costs. Later, in another place, birds sing, and Julia asks if it is not over yet. Shui replies that there is only a little left, and that as soon as the class assignments are posted, they can return to the dormitories to rest. Someone calls out to the two of them, and it is Mina. They ask what she is doing there, and the vice president replies that she came to announce the initial assignments, saying that both of them placed first, Julia in the elite class and Lucas in the martial arts department, and she congratulates them. Julia asks if she really got first place in the elite class and says that it is incredible since she managed to enter the elite class. Chi says that she is amazing and comments that he is counting on her. Mina asks if there is any department she would like to enter next year. Julia asks about the departments, and the vice president explains that there are 5 special departments: Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, and the Special Department. 1 year after enrollment, all students go through tests and are assigned to a suitable department. Julia asks if, based on her attributes, she would fit into the Wind Department, and Mina replies that it is perfect, saying she will be waiting for her in the Wind Department. The protagonist thinks that she is already working hard to identify talented people. The vice president says she will take Julia to the girls' dormitory. Julia says goodbye to her brother, and Shui tells her to take good care of herself, thinking that he himself will probably head to the martial arts department. People look at the scoreboard and comment that among that generation's freshmen, first place belongs to Julia, exactly as expected. All the other freshmen look like mere extras compared to that genius, which is unfortunate for them. Aiwa watches in silence and thinks that she lost by only a little, swearing that one day she will take first place and that the 2 siblings should wait for that day. Elsewhere, the protagonist thinks to himself that he already knew the martial arts department was not exactly a priority for the academy, and wonders whether people can really live there since the place looks like it is about to collapse. The building in front of him is old and dirty. Shui enters and thinks that at least a place like that will be quiet and that he will finally be able to have the peaceful school life he always wanted. A young man approaches and asks if he is Lucas, the student who took first place in the martial arts department. He says his name is Kai Taroy, that he is also part of the same department, and that it is a pleasure to meet him. The protagonist greets him and keeps walking. Kai asks if it is true that he punched the mannequin and sent it flying, saying that it was incredible, and Shui replies that it was just luck. An elderly man appears and says that his room is on the 2nd floor, handing him the key. Taroy comments that they will be in the same room. The 2 walk down the corridor looking for the room and see other people there. When they open the door, a boy introduces himself as Collins and says it seems they will be roommates from that day on, while the companion beside him comments that he looks smart and pleasant. Kai looks around, clearly frustrated, and asks what the hell that room is. Taroy covers his nose and says it is worse than a pigsty, asking if he really has to stay in a filthy room like that. Some people look at Lucas and think that he is handsome and clearly a germaphobe. Kai raises his hand and says he will give that coin to whoever cleans the room. Collins and his partner immediately start cleaning, and the protagonist thinks that this is typical of the heir of one of the 3 great noble families of the imperial capital, after all. It is not like he himself would be forced to live in a dump like that. Taroy comments that this is the famous Allen Magic Academy, and that he is sure the living conditions will improve over time, and Shui agrees. Kai says that it looks more like a cell until a spider almost lands on his shoulder. Taroy is startled and moves quickly, saying that if he keeps complaining like that, the student council might end up dragging him away. A voice praises the good work. Shortly after, still in the same place, the room is completely clean. Kai hands over the reward and says that from now on, as roommates, he will protect them. They take the reward, and Chi thinks that, although he is arrogant, he cannot bring himself to hate him. An elderly man enters the room and says he came to deliver the uniforms. The entrance ceremony is about to begin in the hall, so everyone needs to change and go there. Taroy complains about the uniforms, saying they are bad and torn, and that if he wears that, he will look like a vagrant. Collins and his partner think they are not that bad. The protagonist says this will be explained at the entrance ceremony, but comments that he heard the school has a request system, and that if they ask for better treatment, they might even agree to change the uniform. Kai tells everyone to hurry to the hall, and Shui thinks he is quite naive. In the hall, after changing into the uniforms, they enter, and she notices that the place is packed. Collins comments that the hall is very elegant, while Taroy says that compared to his house, it is nothing. The protagonist looks around for his sister, and Kai asks if he is looking for her, explaining that the elite class sits in the front and that their uniforms are on a completely different level. The martial arts department is seated farther back, so if he wants to say hello to his sister, it is better to do it now. Shui says it is fine and that they should just go to their seats, thinking that the uniform looks even better on his sister. A voice comments that those seats are far too distant and questions whether only the martial arts department is being discriminated against. Chi sits down and notices something beside him. The candles light up and someone on the stage releases an impressive power through his hand. His fire molding level is 6, and the young man wreathed in flames says that everyone should feel honored, because on that day, he himself, the president of the student council and future great mage, the one and only Theodoro Folamel, will present the school's point system. People comment that he is incredible, that his aura is oppressive, a level 6 mage even before graduation, a true genius, making hearts race. The president explains that at that academy, the point system is the foundation of almost everything. Magical skills and rare books, tamed magical beasts and precious materials, even the guidance of great masters, any imaginable learning resource can be obtained using points. There are many ways to earn them, but points obtained from common jobs are extremely low, only 1 to 5 per hour. It is far more efficient to participate in department events and for senior students to guide freshmen That moment was an excellent opportunity to earn points. The protagonist thinks that this is what it was all about. Theodoro adds that, in addition, by becoming a member of the student council, one receives a stable monthly income of points. And finally, although it involves some risk, there is also monster hunting. Behind the school lies the magical Beast Mountain Range, famous for being infested with such creatures. By hunting them and turning in the materials, students receive a corresponding amount of points. Shui thinks about the magical Beast Mountain Range and wonders if that is not practically a training ground made to measure for him. A few hours later, already in the room, the candle goes out. The protagonist leaps out the window and thinks that, thanks to the tranquility incense, his roommates are sleeping deeply and that he can finally head to the magical Beast Mountain Range. The martial arts department building is at the back of the campus, and right behind the dormitory is already that dangerous region, making Shui wonder what it means that the magical Beast Mountains are so close. Chi crouches and leaps, moving rapidly through the air. He approaches a monster, grabs the horn of a beast, and hurls it away, causing a massive impact and ripping the horn from the creature. Shui comments that it is a black-horned giant frog whose horns are poisonous and widely used in the preparation of magic potions, and should yield a good amount of points. Chi thinks that he heard the Allen Magic Academy has some legendary martial arts books in its archives, and that he needs to accumulate enough points to obtain the skill said to have been used by the martial god himself. It is not the time yet, so he first needs to locate more monsters. The protagonist activates his ocular ability and observes the surroundings. Detecting a level 1 rat, Shui immediately rushes toward it and eliminates it. Next, Chi defeats a level 2 bat and then a level 3 panther with violent blows. The protagonist comments that it was a great haul, obtaining useful materials to refine elixirs and items that can be exchanged for points. But even so, everything is strangely quiet, with almost no traces of other magical beasts. Shui wonders if this means that a powerful being is living nearby. Chi stands still, focusing until he notices something. His ability reveals the path and location of the monster. The protagonist smiles and says that he found it. Shui moves quickly and thinks that, about a kilometer away, the monster has also already noticed him. Inside a cave, Chi lands on the ground and comes face to face with a terrifying creature. It is a level 6 ice and fire wolf. The protagonist smiles and says he understands. It makes sense for it to be so territorial. The wolf roars. Shui clenches his fists and charges. The beast releases its ability, freezing his hand, and seems to smile arrogantly. Even with his fist frozen, Chi strikes it with full force, shattering one of its teeth and sending it flying. The wolf falls to the ground, and the protagonist comments that if he had trained more, he could have ripped off its leg. He tells the wolf to get up and asks if it still is not over. The wolf rises and begins releasing flames, causing a violent explosion and a suffocating pressure all around. The attack is brutal. The wolf howls and Shui appears behind it, with his fist clenched once again, striking the enemy squarely. The wolf spits plasma and is sent flying, crashing to the ground again. Chi notes that the creature has ice and fire attributes and comments that controlling two opposite elements with such freedom is extremely powerful. The wolf snarls, widens its eyes, and the protagonist asks what kind of rare magical creature it is. The wolf reacts as it realizes he's getting closer and closer and begins releasing the energy of both attributes at the same time. Shui moves in, starts absorbing it, and wonders if what he is feeling is steam. The smoke dissipates, the wolf gets up again and tries to flee. Chi moves in an instant and says he will not let it escape. The protagonist reaches out, grabs the wolf's tail, and slams it into the ground once more. Shui thinks fighting a magical beast of that caliber is perfect, and that this thing must be worth an absurd amount of points. The wolf seizes a moment of distraction and attacks him, slamming him into the wall. Chi steadies himself and takes an attacking stance. The wolf begins releasing flames continuously. The protagonist dodges, but the creature presses on, forcing him to duck. Shui counters with a heavy strike, triggering an explosion, clenches his fist, and begins throwing consecutive blows without giving it room to react. The wolf raises its paws, lifts itself up, and opens its mouth, releasing two spheres formed by its two attributes. Shui watches closely and wonders if that is a beast core, remembering that in that world some magical beasts have an internal core, a rare material that concentrates all their power. If a single drop of human plasma touches the beast's core, it becomes that human's tamed beast. Chi asks if it wants to become his tamed beast, saying he accepts. He thinks that not even mages usually possess a level 6 beast, but that creature does not seem very intelligent. Since truly strong magical beasts are proud and rarely submit to a human, the protagonist cuts his finger, lets his plasma drip onto the two cores, and returns them to the beast. The wolf swallows them. Soon after, someone calls him master. Shui is confused and looks around until the wolf says it was him who spoke. Chi realizes he can understand what it says and replies that from now on he will call it Ul. He wonders if that means that territory belongs to Ul and now also to him, and whether it has any good loot accumulated from hunting. The wolf senses something, approaches, and says its treasure is over there, then starts walking, indicating the way. The protagonist smells something strange and notices a complete hide from a level 6 magical beast, bones from an iron snake ape, and even gemstones, realizing it is a true treasure. The wolf asks what he is doing because that treasure has been there for a long time. Shui looks more closely and thinks that all the beast cores there are level 3 or higher, with even 2 level 6 cores. The wolf comments that it already ate all the water and fire attribute cores. Chi remembers that for a beast to level up, it needs to consume the core of another beast of equal or higher level, which means Wool defeated at least 2 opponents as strong as itself, something far from simple. Chi says it did a good job and gives it a reward. The wolf swallows it and feels something different. The protagonist explains that it is a healing potion that works on magical beasts too, saying it can recover while guarding that treasure. The wolf replies that its first mission can be to stay with him. Shui looks to the side and smiles. In the classroom of the building, Chi enters yawning, thinking that he ended up staying up all night, but thanks to the sleep incense, he's not really tired. He tries to estimate the value of the treasure he obtained, but Ul keeps drawing his attention. Hours pass and no teacher appears. The students begin asking where the teacher is and whether he should not be present for the first class. Kai comments that it is impossible the administration forgot to assign a teacher to the martial arts department, and the protagonist agrees, saying that cannot be happening. Then someone approaches, a bottle falls to the floor, and a voice complains that he drank too much. A dry thud echoes, and the students look over in surprise. The man introduces himself, saying he is Shigart, the person in charge of the martial arts department, and states that class is about to begin. Shui feels a bit awkward. The teacher writes his name on the board, opens a book, but does not say a single word. Kai looks annoyed and asks if that guy is really the teacher, saying he does not look like one at all. A strange sound echoes and Taroi asks why he suddenly screamed. Chi says he has no idea and just smiles, thinking the teacher is probably a level 5 or 6 martial artist. The teacher then says that from that moment on, no one is to speak without his permission and begins roll call, calling names like Tishy and Lucas. Shui thinks he has seen that girl at the entrance ceremony, remembering that while everyone else was joking around, she was the only one sitting in silence, which left a strong impression. Shigart closes the book and says, "It is great, everyone is present." He announces that today's class is, and then admits he forgot the books, so he is appointing Tishy as class representative to go to the office and fetch them. Tishy asks if it is really her, and the teacher confirms. Kai immediately stands up and asks him to wait a minute, saying the class representative should be chosen fairly, with candidates competing for the post, and that, with his family background and his skills, he would show he is the most suitable. Taroi is struck before he can finish, and Shigart asks whether he did not say no one should speak without his permission. He adds that once the books are distributed, everyone is to study on their own for the rest of the day. Tishy replies that she understands and thinks she just passed the entrance exam and has already been chosen as class representative, so she needs to take advantage of this chance to change her fate. Kai, with a bump on his head, complains that that bastard is abusive. The protagonist comments that there is definitely something strange about him. Taroi suggests they complain to the school administration to get him fired, and Shui observes that from the way he shifts his weight, he likely suffered a serious injury in the past, wondering how strong he was before he got hurt. Chi says he never said anything about complaining. Kai asks if he still calls himself a man. Chi thinks someone that strong is interesting and that this might be more fun than he expected. A few hours later, in front of the cafeteria, Taroi complains that all they got was self-study because of that irresponsible teacher and asks if it makes sense to choose a class representative on a whim, saying he is the worst. Julia calls out to her older brother and the protagonist asks how her first day of class was. Julia replies that the teacher is super nice and even encouraged her, saying she should try to become class representative next week. Kai comments that the class representative is always chosen a week after classes start. Julia asks if they already chose one for the martial arts department, and if it was him. Shui replies that no and says they should go have lunch, because he heard the food there is very good. Julia asks if he is serious and tells him to hurry. At the Allen Magic Academy, even meals are part of the point exchange system. New students without points can exchange money for points, but only the first time, and the rate varies depending on the department. A banquet is laid out on the table. Julia says it is delicious and tells her brother to eat too. Kai smiles and thinks that the two of them paid 1 coin, so it makes no sense for the elite class to get 100 points, while the martial arts department receives only 10, thinking it is complete nonsense. The secretary tells a student that the martial arts department rate is 10 points, and that if he has a problem with that, he should leave. Taroi thinks that even the teachers openly discriminate against students from the martial arts department. The staff member comments that it does not matter whether someone is noble or commoner, because students without talent only need to work hard and accumulate points. Kai thinks it seems he lost his human rights just by enrolling there. Julia gives him a delicious plate, and Taroi, moved, thinks she is a kind and sweet girl, while the protagonist thinks he is being a bit dramatic. Then someone approaches the cafeteria. Shui turns around and sees Maya, who says they have met again. Julia invites her to eat with them, but Maya replies that she already ate and thanks her, saying she baked some cookies to thank them for the other day and asks if she wants some. Julia takes one and thanks her. Chi comments that they are delicious, and Julia says she is a great cook. Maya smiles. Kai asks for one, and after eating it, Taroy says it is not an ordinary cookie, that it has the same quality as his family's special sweets, saying it is a pleasure to meet her. Maya replies that it is a pleasure to receive compliments like that. Kai comments that he is friends with a girl like that and says that is not bad at all, while the protagonist thinks there is no way he can tell him she is his ex-fiancée. Maya says goodbye and Shui thinks it is exactly as he imagined. The cafeteria is a terrible place for unexpected encounters. The vice president stays very close to his sister and only speaks to Chi when the two of them are together. People keep commenting that the student council president was extremely impressive, and that it even looked like he was using fire magic to fly inside the hall, a real show-off. At the same time, Theodora was hiding somewhere else, saying it was a close call, that he almost lost control of his level 6 magic, and that thanks to that potion, he managed to look amazing in front of the freshmen. In the present, the protagonist thinks he really did find it impressive, until he heard Theodoro complaining to himself after the entrance ceremony. Someone passes by and drops a bottle. Shui looks over and realizes it is the professor from his department, wondering where he is going. Shigart drinks excessively and staggers as he walks. In the meeting room, other professors comment that he arrived last again and say they thought taking over the martial arts department would make him change, but someone remarks that they cannot blame him, not after what happened. Shigart sits down, a female professor watches him silently, closes her eyes, and then someone slams a hand on the table saying that everyone is present and the meeting will begin. The agenda of the day is the Magical Beast Domestication Tournament. In the Carmina Empire, which frequently suffers attacks from monster hordes, the ability to tame multiple beasts at the same time is considered essential, so it is tradition for all freshmen of the Allen Magic Academy to participate in the annual domestication tournament. The professor informs them that more than 2,000 level 1 magical beasts have already been prepared and that the event will take place in 6 days, as usual. One professor comments that this is not a problem, but suggests that students from the martial arts department could simply be excluded, since they have no real chance against magical beasts, and forcing them to participate would just be a waste of time. Someone slams the table. It is Shigart saying that he objects. The other professor replies that he was only thinking about the students' well-being. The female professor states that as long as they are freshmen, martial arts students must be forced to participate. Another faculty member agrees, saying everyone should be treated equally. One professor mocks them, asking if there are still teachers willing to stand by Shigart, especially that beautiful one, and sarcastically says not to tell him they think that guy is an 8th level powerhouse. He says that if they insist, fine, he is sure they will just end up crying in fear anyway, but it does not matter. The director ends the discussion and decides that the martial arts department will participate in the tournament. After the meeting, someone asks Miss Linda if she is sure about this, saying that Mr. Greg had a point and that although martial arts involve real combat, the domestication tournament might be too harsh. Linda smiles and replies that a long time ago, someone told her that a coward who does not dare to overcome difficulties has no right to call himself a martial artist, and that any student who refuses to participate in the tournament must leave the martial arts department. The Magical Beast Domestication Tournament will take place in 6 days. Somewhere else, Shigart says that after that there will be outdoor practical combat training, and that he will make sure each of them can defeat a magical beast. Kai asks about the tournament and whether it is not just an event to choose the class representative, saying that there is already a representative and questioning whether it makes sense to participate now. Taroy is struck again, and the professor says that class is starting. Someone mutters that that handsome guy is always irritating the professor. The protagonist reflects on practical combat and thinks it is better to be careful not to send his sparring partner flying too far. During training, someone is thrown against a tree and it was Tishy who did it. Shui watches and thinks that everyone there passed the martial arts department entrance exam, so they are not weak, and that the class representative in particular is the strongest there after himself, and also has a good eye. Chi also throws his partner away. Shigart announces that it is already late and that today's training ends there. Kai, lying on the ground, complains that it is finally over. Colin says he will go to the cafeteria and bring his food later as promised, and the partner beside him asks if he made another deal. Taroy explains that he gave him a coin and in exchange, he is bringing food that costs points, so Collins profits and he saves his own points. A win-win situation. The partner asks why he did not mention such a good deal. Collins apologizes and says he will let him take the next one, on the house. The protagonist thinks he is buying time and keeping relationships balanced. Collins is really clever. Kai comments that it is smart and that he should learn a thing or two from him, saying he will not even charge for the lesson. Shui pushes his elbow away from his shoulder and says he appreciates the offer but declines. Taroi thinks it makes sense. After all, he has a sister in the elite class and does not need to worry so much about points. At night, somewhere else, Chi thinks Kai is completely mistaken, because even without his sister, he does not worry about food, since he just killed a magical beast and has the abundance of nature at his disposal. In a cave, meat is being roasted, and Shui thinks that if he did not have to accompany his sister back, he could use dinner time to continue training. That vice president had tried to get close to his sister again that day, so he could not lower his guard. If she showed the slightest sign of bad intentions, he would make her deeply regret it. The wolf approaches and starts drooling at the sight of the meat. The protagonist hands it over and thinks that, looking at him now, he is actually quite cute. Sharing food for free makes him realize that having a tamed beast is not so bad after all. He says that after eating, he will help him train and promises he will not hurt him. The wolf thinks it will not be that easy. Meanwhile, at the Ryan family estate, Catherine is sitting, restless and lost in thought. Someone approaches, touches her shoulder, and asks if she is thinking about the children again. Catherine replies that she cannot hide anything from him. Holt says their classes have probably already started and that if she misses them that much, she should go visit them. In any case, he needs to pass through Daku Town for work and can take her along. Catherine thanks him and thinks she is very happy to be able to see the children. At Count Grindo's residence, several people are gathered wearing hoods and masks. A woman steps onto the altar and says she is very happy that she came and asked her to sit. It is Jessica, the second wife. The woman says this is her new creation, Jade Dream, and the moment she drinks it, her entire body begins to glow. Jessica takes the cup and the woman pierces her own skin, letting plasma drip into the cups. The hooded and masked people drink the plasma. The woman then removes her clothes and says that tonight's game will begin. Jessica watches but does not drink the plasma. Later, still in the same place, the woman asks if an 11-year-old girl destroyed the Black Wind group. Jessica replies that Julia received a level 7 blessing. The woman says she inherited talent from both Catherine and the Mirandas, that those families really do produce talents, but that a mere level 7 should not be capable of defeating them. She asks about her son, stating that he will bear no fruit, and declares that she wants to eliminate Catherine and make her daughter the Baroness. Jessica asks what she should do. The woman smiles, touches the symbols, and says that the moment a young bud sprouts is truly beautiful. On another day at the academy, Tishy comments that she heard there will be more practical combat training that morning. The students say she must be joking because their entire bodies hurt and that the night before they were in so much pain they could barely sleep, saying that teacher is a real monster. Tishy says it definitely hurts, but that it is necessary for them to become stronger, and that everyone should give it their best. Someone asks if her body hurts too, and others say they themselves feel no pain at all, questioning whether that is proof their bodies are tougher than everyone else's. Kai says that must be it. After all, he himself said he is the strongest in the class, and Collins agrees, saying it is exactly as he said. The protagonist thinks it is just the effect of the sleep incense. Tishy observes and thinks that those four look completely fine, that they have absurd endurance, and that with that they will be able to face challenges in the future, definitely becoming strong martial artists. Kai tells them to go. When Taroi advances, Shui blocks and counterattacks, sending him flying. Chi advances, and the two start exchanging blows. Kai comments that he is not bad at all, and the protagonist replies that he is not either. Someone watches them from afar, and Shui senses a presence, realizing that someone is observing them. There is an old man at the top of the mountain, and Chi wonders if it is that old man. Taroi tries to attack him again, saying he left an opening, but the protagonist dodges effortlessly. Kai slams his face into the ground and tells him not to look away because they will fight until there is a winner. Shui replies that it is fine. The old man in the distance bursts into laughter. The vice president calls him Director Otani and says that if he is heading back to the library, he should find her there. The director replies that it is fine and that he will enjoy a calm walk back. He thinks that this is a fascinating young man who is hiding his true strength, and realizing that he cannot even fully assess Lucas's real abilities makes him decide that he will remember this name. Several hours later, the protagonist thinks that class has finally ended. The professor taught massage techniques, said they are important, and wanted everyone to learn them, so Shigert demonstrated the technique on Collins. Shui notices that the effect was incredible, as everyone's muscle fatigue disappeared completely. This way, they will quickly forget that only 4 of them were fine that morning, and now it is time to move forward with the new training ground. The first step will be to buy the necessary materials. The magical materials shop of the Allen Magic Academy, one of the 3 great academies of the Empire, has a huge variety of rare products that are not available to ordinary people. The place is enormous, almost like a shopping mall, and as everywhere else in the academy, everything must be paid for with points. The high-quality training dummies offer excellent options, but the prices are absurd, making it seem easy to spend 1,000 points per month there. Julia earns many points, but he knows he cannot keep relying on her. Today's plan is to buy the magical potion to mix into the bathtub. Next time, he will exchange the materials he stored in Ull's cave for points. At one of the counters, someone is sleeping until a bag is placed on the table and the clerk wakes up. The protagonist says he wants that, and the clerk replies that it will cost 5 points. She swipes the card, looks at his uniform, and thinks he is a student from the martial arts department, remembering that those useless students only receive 10 initial points, so he is spending half of them at once. She confirms the payment of 5 points and thanks him. Then she asks if he really knows how to use all of that and comments that he will regret it if he wastes points like this. Shui replies that he thinks this still will not be enough, so he will probably come back to buy more. The clerk thinks they do not even have potion classes and wonders how a martial arts student could use this kind of item, concluding that this is why she hates dealing with nobles. Later, in a cave, Chi is inside the bathtub and thinks that just because the ingredients are mixed into the water does not mean the medicinal effect disappears. Still, it feels wasteful to throw it all away, but it's not like he can force someone to drink bathwater. A monster watches with its mouth open. The protagonist gets out of the tub, satisfied, and thinks it was great, deciding that he will gather some materials to exchange for points. He does not want to stand out, so he will only use common level 2 materials. Then Shui notices something strange and sees the wolf drinking the bathwater. He asks what the wolf is doing and whether it drank all the water. The wolf lowers its head. Chi says it is fine because that will also strengthen its body. The wolf thanks him and says it also wants meat, and the protagonist thinks that this even solves the problem of wasting bathwater. After that, Shui continues collecting materials and plans to exchange them for points over 3 days, outside peak hours. For now, he hides them near the dormitories and plans to discreetly carry them to the cave that night. The clerk observes the weight and asks if he wants magical help to carry them. Chi replies that it is fine and that he can handle it himself. The clerk thanks him and comments that he is a blessed child. Chi thinks she believes these materials came from his family, and that it helps that people simply make assumptions, especially with the magical beast domestication tournament approaching. The next day, Shigart asks if they are really taking training seriously and reminds them that the tournament is tomorrow, saying they should not treat it lightly just because they hate training. If they do not want to participate, they should quit and go home. Shigart criticizes Kai for lifting his leg too high and leaving himself completely exposed, asks what kind of weak punch that was, and says he would not even be able to beat a girl like that. Taroi responds that he already beat his 3 classmates. Kai is hit once again since the professor always strikes right between the eyes. Shigart asks if the 3 of them are saying they lost to him, and they all confirm it. The professor thinks that this is what makes noble brats so unbearable and announces that Tishi will pair up with Kai. The 2 step forward, and Taroi declares that he will not hold back, saying he will prove with his skills who is more suitable to be class representative. Tishi tells him to go ahead. Kai advances quickly, smiling, and attacks. Tishi counters and the 2 exchange fast, heavy blows. Tishi lands a solid hit. Taroi shouts and tries to rush again, but Tishi stops him and throws him away with force. The students are surprised, commenting that he lost despite having a size advantage, and say they now understand why the professor chose her as class representative. Shigart states that a magical beast will not hold back on them, and that everyone must take this seriously. The protagonist watches and thinks that Kai went all out from the start with no defense, and that Tishi simply identified the weakness and exploited the opening. Tishi asks if he is okay. The professor notices that Kai looks irritated and tells everyone to pay attention, saying that tomorrow each of them must tame at least 1 magical beast. If they fail, they will be expelled from the martial arts department. This is the last training session of the day with full force sparring until nightfall. Kai tries to say something, but Shui comments that his defense is a complete mess, and that if he can fix that bad habit and learn to aim for the opponent's weaknesses, he will be fine. Taroi says that is not it, that this is the first time a girl has sent him flying, and that her movements were so amazing that he already came up with names for the children he would have with her. Chi wonders if he is a masochist. The next day, a voice announces that the gate is opening and that everyone should enter in an orderly manner. The place is huge, and someone comments on how many magical beasts must be inside, saying that just imagining all those terrifying monsters running around already makes him scared. A boy asks whether the martial arts department will be in the same area as them, and his partner replies that they will just be destroyed immediately, questioning why they even bothered to enter. Shigart says that if he has time to waste on useless thoughts, he should use it to memorize the tournament rules. Someone crosses their legs, and the protagonist thinks he never imagined that old man would actually defend the martial arts students. Shui senses a presence. Kai comments that he is starting to feel nervous, and she replies that if he wants to be fine, he should pretend the magical beasts are the professor. Taroi imagines punching the professor in the face, and in a low voice the protagonist says they are so weak that it is enough to imagine beating up the professor. Kai says that is a great idea and that he is already getting excited. Shigart thinks he can hear every word they are saying. Shui states that a low-level magical beast cannot break his defense if he concentrates properly, and Taroi assures that he will not make the same mistake again. The professor thinks that Lucas gives some fairly decent advice. On the big screen, a man appears explaining that in this tournament, Those who tame 10 magical beasts will receive a perfect score, while those who kill a beast will have points deducted accordingly. The time limit is 10 minutes, and if anyone gets injured, they must immediately call a professor outside the barrier. He announces that the tournament begins now and that the first group of competitors should enter. Julia walks in and asks if that is a spatial barrier, saying that now she understands, because she was wondering how 50 magical beasts could fit inside such a small cabin. Ahead, monsters appear. Julia releases her magic and comments that she thinks the others are all at the back of the cabin, while she chooses a magical beast that looks cute. Lightning strikes are fired at the creature. The instructor explains that the magical beasts used in the domestication tournament have been coated with a special potion, and that when a beast submits, vibrant smoke rises from its body, allowing the professors outside the barrier to monitor the situation through magic circles and evaluate each student's progress. A signal sounds, and the examiner announces that Location 5 has completed the mission and that the test has ended. Julia exits the testing area. Professor Linda is waiting for her and says that finishing in just 3 minutes is impressive. Julia thanks her and says that she wants to check on how her brother is doing, asking where the martial arts department area is. The professor replies that it is Location 10, that the martial arts department will be the last to enter, so it will probably take a while, and Julia says she will go buy a snack while she waits. Meanwhile, someone watches her from the shadows. Iowa thinks about Lucas Ryan from the martial arts department and wonders whether he will achieve results as outstanding as those from the entrance ceremony. 2 hours later, a student comments that he only scored 1 point and asks if that means he will be transferred to a lower class. His partner replies that the classes were already decided at the entrance ceremony, so that will not happen. Aside from the elite class, all mages scored only 1 point. Kai asks whether they will really be able to remain in the martial arts department. The protagonist tells him not to worry, because in terms of raw power, it is not as if they are weaker than the mages. The professor agrees and tells them not to underestimate themselves, explaining that the reason no one has been injured so far is that a level 1 magical beast cannot injure a human. When it comes to physical endurance and close combat, martial artists are stronger than low-level mages, so they need to have more confidence. The students find it strange that he's encouraging them like that. Someone approaches and says they went to check and that it is true, no one was injured. It is Tishy, who adds that most people are just exhausted from having consumed all their mana, and that in addition, she discovered important information. It seems they are using barriers to restrict the beast's movement for safety, preventing students from being surrounded. So if they feel they cannot win, they can just run away and look for a weaker beast. As long as they manage their energy well and take the tournament seriously, everyone should be able to get a good score. They thank her for the information, and Tishy says it was nothing. She just did what any class representative would do. Shigert thinks that choosing her as class representative was the right decision. At that moment, someone approaches saying that he thought he heard some despicable student spying on the class, commenting that he understands that kind of thing well. After all, when someone has no talent, like those in the martial arts department, all that remains is to rely on cowardly tricks to get by. It is Greg, who adds that the martial arts department is next to enter, so he came to warn them, saying they had better make their students work as hard as possible and asking whether Shigert really would not care if the entire department were shut down. Shigert lowers his head, and Greg says that even if it disappeared, it would not be a problem at all because the martial arts department should never have existed. Greg walks away. The protagonist thinks that this guy is exactly like the bastards who humiliated him in his past life. Shui stands up and says that since he placed first in the class during the entrance ceremony, he will enter first. Shigart agrees, but comments that if he is nervous, he can let someone else go first. Chi replies that no, he will go first himself, as planned. The protagonist thinks that he will definitely get a good score and prove to those idiots who look down on the martial arts department what they are truly capable of. The other students agree, saying they will put on a good show as well. Shigert observes that just moments ago, everyone was trembling with fear, and now the atmosphere has completely changed. Kai reminds them not to forget what the class representative said. Shui replies that he understands, but comments that he does not think it is right to use honorifics. The professor thinks that they really are just a bunch of simple kids. 10 minutes later at Location 10, Chi runs in and thinks about the magical perception circles, reflecting that if he can avoid them, then no one will know what really happened inside that barrier. When a magical creature recognizes a master, their souls connect, allowing direct communication and enabling the master to temporarily use the beast's abilities. The wolf notices something and thinks that his master is stronger than he himself is, wondering why he would be using the beast's power. As the protagonist advances, he thinks that it is easy to simply subdue low-level magical beasts. The owl takes flight upon sensing the presence and accelerates even more. Shui thinks that it is a higher-level magical beast trying to flee, until the owl suddenly stops when it encounters something ahead. Chi continues advancing and thinks that if he wants to make it easier for the other students to tame it later, it is better to break its will to fight now. The owl plummets and crashes heavily to the ground. The protagonist approaches the fallen owl and thinks that the aura of a high-level magical beast should be enough to intimidate those of lower level. And it seems that Owl's power is indeed proving useful. The owl begins to release energy, and Shui is thankful for having sent it so easily, but he understands that until he has subdued all the beasts in that area, he cannot allow the potion smoke to escape beyond the barrier. The owl gets back up, visibly weaker, and Chi comments that he will go look for more beasts, while the owl thinks that it never wants to see him again. On the external scoreboard, Lucas still shows 0 points. Kai watches and asks if half the time has already passed and he is still at 0. Julia replies that it is fine, saying that she herself achieved a perfect score and knows that her brother can do it too. Greg approaches and comments that not even having a single point means he cannot defeat even the lowest level magical beast, stating that this is the difference between a martial artist and a mage, while Shigart remains standing there listening. Julia tells him not to dare mock her brother because he is amazing even without using magic. Greg wonders if she is really defending a martial artist and thinks that the elite class student is just as blind as that professor, saying that she can say whatever she wants because the results speak for themselves. At that moment, Lucas gains 1 point. Toroi comments that it is fine. At least this way he will remain in the martial arts department. Greg scoffs, saying that he seems very happy with just 1 point, reminding them that the highest score in his class is 5. Suddenly, the points begin to rise rapidly. Greg becomes confused, thinking that the martial arts department is useless, and wonders if Lucas really reached the same score as his best student, finding it impossible. Inside the dungeon, the protagonist realizes that all the beasts are intimidated and understands that his teammates should now be able to accumulate points easily. He thinks that he just needs to secure his perfect score and leave. The points rise quickly and reach 9. The owl tries to flee, thinking that that terrifying human has returned, but Shui subdues it once again, gaining 1 more point. Greg's eyes widen. The examiner announces that 10 points correspond to a perfect score. Julia beams with joy and proudly says that this is her older brother. Chi leaves the testing area and someone asks if the martial arts department really achieved a perfect score. Julia replies that she knew he could do it. Greg states that it is impossible for a martial arts freshman to tame 10 magical beasts and asks if he used an imposter. The protagonist looks back beside his sister and Shigart says that he did nothing. An examiner raises his hand and asks if Greg is implying that he would accept a bribe or allow cheating. Greg realizes that he completely forgot about the examiners and understands that making enemies of people at that level would be a grave mistake. So he says that was not his intention. He only found it suspicious because the same student had already achieved a perfect score on the entrance exam when the dummy shattered. The examiner says that he will investigate the interior of the barrier. Kai comments that they are only mocking the judgment because the martial arts department got a perfect score. Shui replies that it is fine and tells them to investigate as much as they like because there is nothing to hide. 10 minutes later, the barrier is opened. The owl thinks that now they can see from the outside and that if that terrifying human has disappeared, they should take advantage and flee, and the creatures run in panic. The examiner extends his staff and uses magic to capture one of the beasts, showing that they are extremely agitated but not weakened to the point of justifying any irregularity. Someone nearby asks if he really believes the student achieved a perfect score legitimately. The examiner replies that he found no direct anomaly, but that something clearly affected the creature's behavior. They decide to send those 10 beasts for a detailed inspection and continue the tournament. Soon after, the examiner announces that no problems were found with the results and orders the next competitors to prepare. The protagonist thinks that, although they found no flaws, they still do not trust his abilities, which he finds interesting because the real surprise is yet to come. Tishy runs in to take the test and immediately encounters a wolf. The beast notices her approach but is struck by a direct blow. Tishy thinks that if she cannot subdue it within 30 seconds, she will change strategy and head for the gate. She keeps attacking and the wolf, seized by fear, thinks that she has the same hide as that terrifying monster, wondering if they are companions and if he is still nearby. Tishy clenches her fist and the wolf, completely terrified, does not try to dodge or attack, merely submitting. Tishy finds that strange and wonders whether a level 3 black wolf would really surrender so easily, whether it was just a coincidence, and whether this means that the members of the martial arts department might not be as weak as everyone thinks. Tishy charges at the beasts and her points begin to rise rapidly, leaving the class outside completely thrilled by her performance. Inside the dungeon, she continues attacking without hesitation, piling up points until she reaches 10, the perfect score. People comment that she did it and that she was even faster than Lucas. The examiners glance at one another and once again ask whether there was any problem with the beasts, deciding to send them for a detailed inspection. Tishy thinks that just as Lucas said, the beasts in that tournament were reacting that way only because they were martial artists, and that did not mean they were weaker than mages. In the third match, the student faces the monster with ease and also achieves the maximum score, while Sharp likewise reaches 10 points. In the fourth match, Collins fights and also obtains a perfect score. In the fifth, Kai trades direct blows with the beasts and defeats them without difficulty, finishing with 10 points. One after another, the students of the martial arts department continue to achieve perfect scores, climbing straight to the top of the rankings in each event as the tournament progresses. Shigert watches everything, smiles discreetly, and walks away while drinking. Elsewhere, the examiner reports that the detailed inspection found no problems with the magical beasts or with the barrier space. An old man asks why the scores of the martial arts department are so exceptionally high. The examiner replies that the beasts were probably already frightened by the attacks of the magic division, since the magic students always participate first, but that this is the first time something like this has happened, and also the first tournament since the creation of the martial arts division. He comments that by fighting at close range, the martial artists must have caused even more fear in the beasts. The old man says he understands and decides that, starting next year, the martial arts division will be the first to participate, keeping the current scores as they are. Greg becomes indignant and claims that this means the martial arts division will surpass the mage division and tie with the elite division for first place. Shigart lets out a sigh and the old man asks whether he has a problem with that. Greg replies that he does not, but insists that the martial arts division claiming first place purely by luck, rather than real skill, raises doubts about the fairness of the tournament. The director responds that luck is also part of one's abilities, and that this is not the student's fault, so there is no reason to discard the scores, and the old man agrees, saying that the results will be announced. Greg looks back, sees the two professors together, and thinks that he hopes Shigert is paying attention. The old man approaches the director and comments that this is a critical issue that affects the very existence of the martial arts division, and that if he, as a 9th-level martial artist, noticed this, the director certainly knows what is really going on. Otani replies that he cannot share the details, but guarantees that it is nothing bad for the school, thinking that he will move forward and act as if their abilities were not real, exactly as desired. Elsewhere, Kai comments that he cannot believe he got a perfect score and says he needs to tell his father as soon as possible, adding that honestly, taming that magical beast was not as difficult as everyone made it seem. Collins says that they must have become much stronger since the entrance exams. The protagonist states that all of this was thanks to the professor's special training and thinks that no one discovered his secret. They enter the room and close the door, and Taroi asks what they are going to spend the 20 bonus points on the next day, since they placed first. Sharp replies that he will save his, after all, he still owes that dinner. Collins comments that this means they need to be prepared for emergencies. Kai says that the obvious answer is to buy high-quality materials for next month's combat training. Shui asks about that training, and someone explains about Allen Tower, the main training field of the Allen Magic Academy, where there is a complete illusory world with different races, magical beasts, beastmen, and giants, allowing one to choose who to fight against. Because they are illusions, there is no real danger, but the combat experience is extremely close to reality, helping one learn how to face all kinds of opponents. Sharp comments that only 100 freshmen can enter, that all 12 from the elite division will certainly participate, and questions whether people like them will be able to secure one of the remaining 88 slots. Taroi says he heard that participants are usually chosen based on the ranking of the taming tournament, and since they all got perfect scores, it is practically guaranteed that they are in. Someone stands up, Kai asks where he is going, and Collins replies that he is heading to the supply shop to buy some training equipment. The protagonist thinks that this is exactly as he imagined. Every martial artist wants to become stronger, and making everyone score perfectly in the tournament was the right decision. Kai calls Lucas to stop by the shop as well, but Shui replies that he thinks he will pass. Chi shows a chain and says he wants to take a closer look at the pendant the professor gave him earlier. Taroi comments that this is something only the top 3 who obtained perfect scores in the tournament receive, and says that if the order had been just a little different, it would have gone to Lady Teishi, while the protagonist replies that his only strong point is good luck. Kai sighs and says that it does not matter, stating that he is going to the supply shop to meet his partner and the others. Elsewhere, several people are gathered looking at the scoreboard, which shows that the martial arts department achieved a perfect score with all students. Someone approaches, it is Lila, Greg's student, who says that they should achieve excellent results for 3 consecutive years and become part of the main class after the elite course, asking whether they know how much her father has struggled over the past 10 years. Another student strikes the screen and says that those guys took 20 slots for entry into Allen Tower, and that those slots belong to the mages. The partner beside him comments that even the professors from the magical beast base stated that the martial arts students did not cheat. The boy pulls back the magical dagger he had thrown at the screen, and says that the martial arts department apparently bribed the professors of the Beast Base. A student nearby says that this is not impossible and comments that the son of the Toroi family in the martial arts department could easily bribe them. Someone appears and says that he saw the henchman of the Toroi heir earlier. It is Andre, Greg's student, who claims that they bought the last training equipment in the school supply shop. He asks whether tomorrow, when the 20-point bonus is given to the martial arts department, they do not think the precious materials will continue to be snatched away by them. Lila comments that she remembers that a martial artist's meridians are more fragile than glass, and asks how about correcting their growth rate. Elsewhere, people laugh. A dagger is thrown and sticks into the ground while a voice asks why they are suddenly being attacked. Sharp is badly injured and Collins wonders whether it is poison, thinking they need treatment quickly. He asks whether they want points and says he can give them points. Lila attacks him as well, and a great deal of plasma splashes as they are assaulted. Lila orders them to shut up and says she does not need their points. Sharp asks why she is doing this. Lila replies that her demand is simple, that they crawl back to the martial arts department in their current state and tell the entire class that their lives are worth less than insects. A very loud noise echoes. Several hours later, the protagonist is with Kai searching for their other partners and says that if they can hear him, they need to respond. Kai comments that those guys usually come back late from their part-time jobs and asks why he is so panicked. Shui replies that the situation is different today and thinks that this is the first time he has sensed such a strong smell of plasma on that road. Chi smells it and runs toward the source. Kai asks what that sudden sprint was about. When they stop, they find the two partners extremely injured. Toroi becomes furious and asks who the hell did this. Chi lifts one partner's head, and Collins says it was Greg's class, Lila. The two are gravely wounded. The protagonist looks on with a terrifying expression, seized by such intense rage that his aura changes. Shui says that he is still alive, just unconscious, that he will stop the bleeding and needs to find medicine. Kai runs off to get the medicine. Chi, with his hands over the two of them, thinks that they were cursed, with all their bones shattered into pieces. This is clearly the bone-breaking technique used by black market enforcers, and injuring someone in such a cruel way can completely destroy a person. This is not bullying, it is attempted murder. Sharp calls for his father and mother and says that it hurts. The protagonist hears it and says that it is all right, that he will avenge him. Tishy runs over and asks whether the two were attacked. Kai says that he ran into her by chance on the way back. Shui says that they are not in mortal danger but will need to rest for a few days. Toroi says that thank God it was Lucas who provided first aid and states that he will never forgive those bastards. Tishy says that she will go to the student council tomorrow. Kai replies that the teachers are pretending not to see anything, so the student council will not take them seriously either. Chi, extremely irritated, says that he does not care. Tishy thinks about that expression completely different from his usual gentle demeanor. The protagonist says that he will settle this feud no matter the cost. The next day at the class council, a young man says that he understands the situation and asks whether he wants to duel the students from Professor Greg's class. Shui replies yes. If they win, he will demand an apology from the students who attacked the two members of the martial arts department, and if they lose, he will not mind handing over the S-rank bonus to Greg's class. The young man says there is no proof that Greg's class students are the culprits, and asks whether, by mentioning the S-rank bonus, he means that. He shows the pendant and everyone looks. Then he lets it fall to the ground and says that his hand slipped, asking whether, for something as serious as a duel, betting something so cheap is not inappropriate. The pendant lies on the floor. Kai watches and grits his teeth. Chi asks what would be appropriate. The young man runs a hand through his hair and replies that something unique to the school would be more suitable. For example, the entry qualifications for Allen Tower, saying that the losing side will permanently lose the right to enter the tower, and asks what he thinks of that. The protagonist replies that it is fine. The duel is scheduled for 2 days later and draws the attention of all the students. Freshmen dissatisfied with the martial arts department securing slots for Allen Tower applaud Greg's class, and Greg himself even praises the three who attacked the department members. Meanwhile, Shigert makes no specific comment, merely silently intensifying combat training. On the day of the duel, a voice comments that those three are fighting for the martial arts department, and that they will support them with everything they have since this promises to be interesting. Lila says that there are many people watching and that, if he apologizes now, she might forgive him. The protagonist replies that they still do not know how the fight will end. The commentator orders both sides to prepare for the duel and then announces the start. Andre releases his magic. Kai charges and shatters his barrier, and Andre is surprised to see all his attacks deflected. Toroi asks if that is all he has. Andre adjusts his glasses and thinks that he did not even notice he fell into a trap, and that arrogance really does help deceive the enemy. Kai senses something, an intense power approaching and binding his foot. Andre says that he can no longer escape and bids him farewell. Toroi draws his dagger, and a massive explosion erupts, plasma splashing across the ground. Andre smiles and asks if he understands now, saying that this is what one gets for provoking a mage. Kai is extremely irritated, trapped within the ice. Andre asks what that was and says that if he is surrendering, he should speak louder. Lila comments that, as expected, trash remains trash and says that if he admits defeat now, she will spare his life. The protagonist, irritated, asks how long she plans to keep provoking before being satisfied. Taroi activates his flame attribute and asks whether his magic can also freeze lava in the magical Beast Mountain range. Lila calls him an idiot and tells him to run fast. Another massive explosion occurs. Andre is blasted away and thinks that it was gelatinous lava detonated at point-blank range, wondering whether he does not care about his own life. Kai moves quickly and attacks him. Andre is injured, and someone loudly asks whether a martial artist just wounded a mage. People comment that his legs are completely charred, and that blowing up his own legs to escape the ice prison shows terrifying determination. Taroi thinks that it is exactly as Lucas said. The moment he destroyed the magic that guy released with such confidence, an opening appeared to attack. Andre says that being injured by a mere martial artist is humiliating, but with both legs severely damaged, he can no longer dodge any attacks and must be finished in silence. Kai begins to release his flame attack again, causing a huge impact. Taroi smiles and advances. Kai's hand is frozen, but he easily shatters the ice and says that this is why he hates ice users, because people like that always fail in the end. Andre tells him not to come closer. Taroi attacks him, shattering his glasses and leaving him gravely injured. Andre is sent flying and wonders whether his ice shield was destroyed by sheer brute force, thinking that he never imagined the day would come when he would lose to a mere martial artist. The commentator announces that in the first match, the martial arts department wins. Kai asks his partner if he saw what he did and says it was incredible, commenting that for some reason he is in excellent condition today. The protagonist thinks that this is because he put a homemade ability-enhancing drug in breakfast. Taroi asks whether the next fight will be the classmate against that girl and whether she will be fine. Shui replies that she will definitely be fine. A voice asks what that was just now and says that Andre must have been careless because he is from the Taroi family. Tishy thinks that he won clearly through pure skill and wonders why they simply cannot admit it. Suddenly, Tishy dodges a terrifying attack and realizes that it was a surprise attack from the very start. If it had hit her, she would have been in pieces. Lila says that martial artists are obsessed with honor and ethics, but for mages, the only thing that matters is results. Tishy cuts through the vines and charges, getting very close to attack. Lila spits plasma and wonders how Tishy can be so fast when she is only level 1. She tries to release power through her eyes, but Tishy grabs her arm and says she will explain why. In the code by which martial artists live, there is a teaching to protect human life. Lila tries to use plant magic, but Tishy attacks first, repeatedly, and a voice comments that she is striking the mana meridians with perfect precision. Tishy keeps her fists clenched, and the protagonist thinks that this is exactly as expected of her, with her sharp eyes. Lila screams in pain, and Tishy says that she should not trample so lightly on the pride of a martial artist. The commentator announces that the second match goes to the martial arts department. Lila, collapsed on the ground, drops a few needles from her hand. In another room, a voice asks about poisonous needles, and whether she was really hiding something so dangerous. The vice president questions why something like that was allowed. Theodoro says that she is overthinking it because, in the end, no one was seriously hurt. There is a reason Mr. Shigert chose Tishy as class representative, and this serves as the answer to those who called martial artists weak. The last student of Greg's class thinks that they should have broken their momentum and reclaimed the Allen Tower slots, but now they are the ones being humiliated. There is still a chance if that technique is used again. The students enter the arena, assume attack positions, and the commentator announces the start of the third match. The mage moves quickly and the protagonist stares at him. The mage makes rapid movements and thinks that some mages, like himself, also train physical techniques, and that no one will be able to deal with his high-speed clones. Tishy notices that he is defending at a distance instead of attacking, and wonders how Lucas will respond. Shui thinks that he really does not need to show all his strength. Chi advances to attack him and thinks that he should at least test him. The mage finds this impossible. The protagonist tries to strike him but misses, and the mage wonders whether he truly missed, or if it was his imagination, because for an instant he felt a terrifying presence, commenting that it is a pity. The mage throws a dagger and wounds him. Shui stares at him, and the mage says that he will not withstand his bone-breaking art and that he will crush every bone in his body until the mage notices something wrong. Chi tells him not to think he will win without suffering damage, and the mage wonders why his bone-breaking ring art is not working. Kai comments that Lucas was flawless and asks what he did to his partner. In the fight, the mage attacks from behind and says that he thought he was hiding a supreme move, but that it was just a bluff. The protagonist catches the thrown dagger, grips his arm, and says that now it is his turn. Shui moves his leg, creating an intense shockwave, and the mage wonders how a martial artist of such a low level can generate something like that with just one leg. Chi says that now, no matter what happens, there is no reason to worry about who is watching and asks whether he is ready. The mage tries to summon a magic sword, but the protagonist slams him to the ground, pinning the dagger through his hand. The mage begins to scream in pain and admits defeat. Shui stops his movement, and Greg asks what he is saying, claiming that with his ability he could easily win. Shigart thinks that the man does not even realize how severely injured his own student is, which ends up becoming a problem. Kai cheers, saying they did it, that the martial arts department won all the fights. And people comment that they always despised martial artists, but that perhaps they really can defeat mages in duels. Tishi's eyes widen as she warns her partner to be careful. The mage charges from behind, and in the stands, Aiwa thinks that this cannot be happening. Julia asks what is wrong, and Aiwa thinks that that move looked exactly like the advanced meridian burning technique described in ancient texts. There has not been a single martial artist capable of using this technique in the Empire for the past 100 years, and they wonder who exactly those people are. A voice comments that the three of them were incredibly impressive, and that, when you really think about it, mages are just cowards who rely on surprise attacks. They say that from now on, if any mage dares to look down on them again, they will keep getting challenged to duels. Tishi replies that it is not quite like that she only performed better than normal today. Then someone approaches. It is Shigart, calling them arrogant fools and asking how many times he has told them not to get carried away so easily. A martial artist declares that she will definitely grow stronger and make them regret it. The protagonist thinks the teacher is right, that as martial artists they must have confidence, but not arrogance. Because without constant training there is no real progress. Someone comes over and comments that he is starting to look like a real classroom teacher. Shigart replies that he simply does not want them to end up like him and asks what that means. Linda hands him a letter and says that the magical pathways are shattered like a spiderweb, resembling an ancient forbidden art, the meridian crushing technique. Elsewhere in the infirmary, the mage is in terrible condition. That night, a carriage arrives. Someone gets out extremely furious, slams a hand on the table and asks how a duel between freshmen ended up like this, saying that his son's magic meridians were destroyed and he will never be able to use magic again. He demands severe punishment for the cruel perpetrator and insists that the martial arts department must take responsibility and be dissolved. A bottle falls to the floor and shatters. Shigart steps forward and questions this severe punishment for the vicious perpetrator, saying the man is right. The magic-breaking trio used in the duel matches perfectly with the spell used on Sharp and Collins, making it clear that those three are the culprits who grievously injured the two students, and that Greg and the others must be punished severely according to the school's regulations. Greg wonders if those guys plan to finish them off during the duel, but questions why this is being brought up now, saying they should not change the subject, because they are discussing who is responsible for Break being struck by a forbidden technique. Shigart replies that it has not been confirmed that it is a forbidden technique, and that Meridian Crusher is not something a novice martial artist can use. Break's father thinks that makes sense, because there is no way the incompetent son of the Ryan family, rejected by the gods, could control an ancient forbidden technique. Greg says that an advanced martial artist could use a forbidden technique, but that the only advanced martial artist present at the duel was the teacher, stepping closer and insinuating that he could be the culprit. Shigart replies that if he could use forbidden techniques, he would have used them on him long ago. The man asks if he truly believes Break was not hit by a forbidden technique, and if so, how he explains Break's current condition. Shigart suggests that it might be karma and thinks that he asked Lucas about it afterward, and Lucas insisted he cannot use forbidden techniques, so he shared his own theory. Break paid large sums to learn torture methods from black market enforcers and was apparently notorious in those circles as a troublesome noble son, and the protagonist thinks perhaps he was worried about information leaking from the underworld. Shigart says that an underworld force took advantage of the duel to act. In the present, the man grows thoughtful, and Break's father asks if he thinks he can dismiss the case with such absurd rumors. Greg says it is only speculation. Shigart says it is true, but still more believable than the idea of a beginner martial artist using an ancient forbidden technique. Either way, the fact remains that someone capable of using forbidden techniques was present, and if they earn that person's resentment carelessly, the consequences will be serious. Meridian Crusher is a terrifying technique, capable of instantly ruining even the most talented mage. In the library, the headmaster walks along, finds a book, and picks it up, noticing that the dust has been wiped away, a sign someone handled it recently. Otani begins to read and thinks the hand shape matches exactly what he imagined. The headmaster keeps reading. At the hot springs in the magical creatures mountain range, the protagonist thinks it is time to begin the final treatment for his two partners. Collins and Sharp are immersed in the water. An intense light spreads, noises echo, and their muscles begin to regenerate. Sharp feels pain as he is compressed, and Shui thinks it hurts, but they must endure a little longer. After the cloud of steam clears, Chi comments that martial artists can also use healing techniques, just like mages. Several days later in Darktown, a carriage stops and a voice announces that they have arrived. Holt comments that soon they will see the children, and Catherine replies yes, saying it has been a while and yet nothing seems to have changed since before. Holt calls her, and Catherine says she only remembered a little of the past, so there is no need to worry. Someone approaches, and Catherine is visibly moved when she sees Cyan, her younger brother, and Iowa's father. 10 years ago, Beastman tribes launched a massive attack on the Empire's borders, igniting new wars. People from all sides united to resist the Beastman armies, and after 3 days and 3 nights of continuous battle, both sides suffered enormous losses. It was in that war that the young Knight Commander Holt Ryan and the mage Catherine Miranda first met eyes. Having faced death side by side, the two swore to spend their lives together. However, her father, Duke Miranda, vehemently opposed the marriage, severed family ties, and Catherine cut all contact with the Miranda family. Cyan comments that time passes quickly and that he heard her children are excellent. Their father even said Julia looks very much like Catherine back then. Catherine asks if he truly acknowledges the existence of Julia and the others. Cyan asks if she does not intend to return home and says that, deep down, their father always wanted to see her again. Catherine asks if that is true. Cyan sighs and replies yes, but only her. Catherine immediately understands that does not include her husband. Holt tells her to go ahead, because in any case, he needs to return to the front lines. Catherine tries to say something, but Holt reassures her, saying it is fine, and that he is at least happy they will let her return alone, promising to come get her when the campaign ends. Holt walks away. Cyan thinks that, to reconcile her with their father, he had to swallow his own pride and secretly ask for help. Holt really is a good husband, but their father still has not forgiven the fact that a noble mage married a martial artist, and he thinks that if one day someone could dispel society's prejudice against martial artists, perhaps everything would be different. The protagonist sneezes and finds it strange, thinking he has trained so much that catching a cold makes no sense. Julia comments that it is rare for Kai to buy food for someone else. Taroi says to leave it alone and that once the others are fully healed, they will definitely make him pay for the meal. Shui replies that he thinks it is fine. Nearby students comment that they should look at the martial arts department's King of Luck, saying that apparently an outside enforcer attacked Break even before the duel, and that he won purely by luck, blessed with luck 3 times in a row. Julia steps forward and asks whose gossip that is. Kai says he is going to deliver lunch to the dorm and that because of that, he should go to the cafeteria first with his sister. Elsewhere, Julia is eating when Shui asks if the hairpin in her hair is new. She asks if it is not pretty and says Iowa gave it to her, a gift from the Miranda family. She thinks about the Miranda family and reflects that, with Julia being such a genius mage, it is not strange they want to get closer to her and bring her into the family, commenting that, out of motherly love, she will probably get along well with Iowa. Julia says that, speaking of her mother, she needs to write a letter telling her that she became class representative. Someone approaches to congratulate her. It is the vice president, who comments that she will surely become a pillar of the school in the future and that she will always support her. Julia asks what it means to be a pillar of the school. The two fall silent for a moment and look to the side, toward Iowa. Shortly before, Linda had said that although Iowa had skills comparable to Julia's in mental magic, Julia surpassed her in every other aspect, and that is why she believed Julia was more suitable to be class representative, something Iowa needed to understand. In the present, Iowa thinks she will prove with her own ability that the teacher is only favoring Julia. Iowa leaves the cafeteria and Julia watches, commenting that she left looking very angry and did not even eat properly, saying she will buy lunch and bring it to her. The vice president asks if she is close to Iowa. Julia replies yes, that they are roommates, and comments that Iowa's mental magic is incredible, saying it is the first time she has seen anything like it. The protagonist adds that mental magic is truly rare. Mina, sitting there, activates her magic and creates a shield around the 3 of them. Shui wonders if that is a magic circle to keep sound from spreading. The vice president says that very intelligent people are often difficult to deal with and comments that Julia's wind magic is also interesting. Julia asks what she just said. Chi stabs his fork into the food and asks if she did not come only to chat. Mina thinks her brother is clearly on guard, but as long as he adores his sister like that, this level of interference is no big deal, so she decides to be direct. She asks if he knows the dangerous place called the Magical Beasts Mountain Range behind the school and says that apparently there was recently an ecological anomaly there. The number of low-level magical beasts has dropped drastically, and even crested magic leopard cubs, which used to be common, have simply disappeared. 3 days ago, the Empire's investigation team discovered the lair of a high-level magical beast. A spoon falls to the floor and Julia asks if it is Ul. The protagonist coughs softly and Julia covers her mouth. Shui asks if she wants them to take a field mission and what the difficulty level would be. Mina partially covers her face and replies that the reward is 100 points. The two siblings are surprised, and Chi comments that he and his sister should be able to handle it without problems. At the Miranda estate, Soa Miranda, Duke Miranda, and head of the Miranda family sits at the table during the meal. Cyan thinks that his sister's room has already been cleaned, yet his father still made her stay in the guest room, showing how stubborn he is. Cyan also notices that Catherine has not touched any of the objects in the room. The head of the family calls to her and says that, as for Julia, who has the qualities to become a sacred archmage, he is willing to acknowledge her as his granddaughter. Catherine thanks him and adds that Lucas is also an excellent martial artist who achieved a perfect score. But Soa replies coldly that no matter how excellent a martial artist is, he is still insignificant, because the Miranda family seeks only those with the talent to become sacred archmages. Catherine thinks it is exactly as she imagined. Her father's prejudice against martial artists will not change so easily. Someone asks for permission to speak and reports that the investigation team sent to the Magical Beasts mountain range brought new information. The two siblings wonder why that investigation has flared up so suddenly. The letter states that a new area was discovered beneath the beast's den and that the danger level is still unknown. Cyan asks if something happened in the Magical Beasts mountain range, and Catherine says that the children at the nearby Allen Magic Academy could be in danger. The head of the family replies that Allen Magic Academy has teachers and stationed forces on site, and that as long as they remain inside the school, there should be no danger, telling her she can wait until the situation is resolved before going to see the children. Catherine agrees and thinks her children only need to wait a little longer. Elsewhere, a voice informs them that the mission must be accepted by at least 5 people, and one of them must be a member of the student council. The vice president is indignant and says that when she checked the day before, there was no participant limit. But the young man replies that he is sorry because the president changed the mission requirements after an anomaly was detected in the ridge cave. Mina realizes the man deliberately changed the conditions, betting she would not be able to gather 5 people. The protagonist wonders if she is so isolated she cannot even gather 5 members, and thinks it is no wonder she approached his sister since the entrance exam. Mina apologizes and says it looks like they will have to give up the mission. Shui tells her to leave recruitment to them, and Julia says they will help. The vice president thanks them and starts to feel bad for using them as pawns, thinking they are good kids. Elsewhere, someone appears wearing armor and holding a sword. It is Kai, who says that if his best friend Lucas is going on a field mission, he will help too, thinking it is finally time to use the advanced equipment his parents bought. Maya introduces herself and says it is a pleasure to meet them, explaining that she specializes in water attribute healing magic and can be useful. Mina thinks she should take back what she said earlier because they are all just freshmen and might end up being a burden. Chi asks why his sister called Maya instead of Aiwa, and Julia replies that it was because Aiwa did not even listen to her. The vice president thinks it does not matter because they are only there to fill the minimum number. As for the mission itself, she and Julia should be able to handle it alone. She says they must leave immediately because even with acceleration magic, it will take half a day on foot to reach the Magical Beast's den, so they need to hurry. Several hours later, Mina says they have arrived and notes that this area is under investigation by the Empire's inspection team. Kai observes and says the crest there belongs to the Miranda family, and the vice president adds that there are also clear traces of battle. The protagonist and his sister think it is a good thing they did not find Ol's dwelling. Then Shui senses something approaching. A monster charges in, and Mina reacts instantly, using storm magic to hit the creature head-on and defeat it with a single strike. Another monster approaches from behind her. The vice president notices in time. Kai rushes forward and positions himself in front with his magic shield, telling them to leave close quarters fighting to them. The creature lunges. The protagonist strikes it quickly and complains that they should not steal the spotlight, while Taroi taunts, asking if she thinks she can keep up with his speed. Maya activates the water spirit barrier. The monsters surge together, and Mina thinks it has been a long time since she felt coordination like this in a group, commenting that that magical beast clearly does not like wind and lightning magic. Then the vice president notices something different. Julia is gathering a huge amount of mana and activates barrier magic. Lightning is released, striking the monsters, and Julia then lowers her staff. After completely burning the creatures, Kai comments that her lightning magic still has absurd power. The vice president is also surprised, and Julia asks if she said something just now. Mina replies it is nothing and thinks she seriously underestimated the capabilities of those pawns. Maya releases her magic, and Taroi comments, impressed, that it is incredible because the wound healed instantly, saying she looks like a goddess. Maya replies that it is not like that, thinking it is exaggerated to be called a goddess, but she thinks it would be different if Lucas said it. She freezes for an instant, wondering what she is thinking. Inside the cave, they enter and comment that the space is enormous. A light turns on, and Julia is impressed, saying there is an even larger area in the back. Kai notes that even a small army could pass through there. The protagonist comments that it does not look like a naturally formed cave, but something deliberately excavated, and that the underground must be infested with magical beasts. The vice president confirms, saying that the deeper they go, the more dangerous it becomes, and everyone must stay on maximum alert. Suddenly, goblins rush in. Julia releases a bolt of lightning and eliminates them with a single strike. The vice president explains that they lived underground for so long that their vision deteriorated, so they rely almost entirely on hearing to hunt, and thunder destroys that hearing, leaving them helpless. Taroi comments that at this rate, if they keep defeating beasts like this, the plan is working. A bit farther on, an explosion happens. Kai runs to lure more beasts while Julia watches and activates her magic together with Mina. Taroi looks surprised as he sees the two intense, devastating spells surging forward together toward the beasts. An explosion echoes through the cave. The protagonist comments that it is really efficient and thinks it is nothing like ordinary area attacks, not even the ones from reincarnation games. Kai says he is pulling the monsters in precisely so they can wipe everything out at once, calling the idea brilliant, and says he can only do it thanks to his advanced equipment, asking Lucas to forgive him for stealing all the glory. Shui thinks he should not assume everyone wants attention like he does. Following Taroi's suggestion, the group starts eliminating the magical beast steadily while Maya focuses on healing Kai, and in this way they advance gradually toward the center of the lair. Everyone is exhausted except Chi, who tells them to give his sister and the others a break, and asks if that guy is pretending not to hear. Maya says she thinks so. Taroi comments that he brought everyone there and that the rest depends on him, asking where the others went. They are right next to him, and the protagonist says that even if it is his fault, they will have to sacrifice the comrade. Maya says she is out of magic power, so there is nothing she can do, and Julia tells him to be happy in the afterlife. Maya adds that if there is still even a little rage left in him, she will definitely save him. Suddenly a noise echoes. Maya asks if it is their partner. Shui says no, and that the sound came from the center of the lair, deducing that the research team probably found the boss of that place. The vice president asks if they should go check. Chi smells an intense scent of plasma and tells everyone to drink the recovery potion he brought from home. Mina thanks him and says that with the research team's abilities, they might not even need to intervene, but they will check just in case. Elsewhere in the cave, they find finished-off bodies. The vice president is alarmed and asks if the entire research team was wiped out, saying this is wrong and they need to abort the mission and retreat immediately. The stones around them begin to crack and something approaches. Mina looks terrified and a giant monster emerges, radiating an absurd aura. The vice president asks in shock if that is a minotaur and whether a calamity-class monster is truly there. The protagonist thinks there is no way a creature that strong would appear in a school mission. Something is definitely wrong, but the presence feels familiar as if he has sensed it before. To protect the vice president, Shui steps forward. The monster attacks, but Chi manages to block it while a barrier is also activated. Julia asks if everyone is okay and whether that ice shield that appeared a moment ago was Mina's doing. The protagonist replies that no, saying it was that person trapped in the Minotaur's hand. A young man is being held, and the monster asks if he was the one who interfered. Shui asks whether, even with such grievously wounded people, he still tried to save them. The young man asks them to quickly call for Imperial Army reinforcements, saying that the ancient seal of that place has been broken. The monster tightens its grip on him and declares that this conversation is pointless, because it intends to devour every one of them. Julia asks how he can do that. Something falls to the ground. Julia watches in surprise, and an intense light is emitted. The young man invokes a magic circle and says that it is the monster who is talking nonsense. The Minotaur is frozen, and the young man orders them to run immediately and report everything that is happening there. The vice president answers that she understands. Chi thinks that he failed to save him, but that he will return soon to avenge him. The young man shouts for them to run while they still can, saying that he did everything within his power. The Minotaur shatters the ice and asks how a mere insect dared to attempt a surprise attack on him. The creature is about to swallow the young man when attacks strike the monster, forcing it to release him. It was Julia who attacked, saying that he is not an insect but a great warrior. A power is released to cushion the young man's fall. It was the vice president using her wind bomb, and she asks why they are advancing instead of fleeing, since he risked his life to buy them time. The protagonist says he will hold it there and asks them to report the situation outside. Mina states that this is a calamity-class threat and that there is no way a freshman like him can restrain something like that. Shui thinks she is right and that it will not be easy at all. A stone falls to the ground and the Minotaur declares that all of them will be finished. Chi tells them to leave it to him and hurry. The vice president replies that she will not retreat because it is her duty to protect everyone. The protagonist thinks he always imagined her as merely calculating and selfish, but realizes she is braver than he expected. Julia says she cannot flee and leave the two of them behind. Maya suggests sending an enchanted message to Kai, who is at the cave entrance asking for help, and that they will fight together until then. The monster opens its huge mouth. The mages attack together, and Mina says that even working together they still cannot defeat that thing. Shui asks them to trust one another. Chi moves quickly and says that there is no way they will lose to a monster like that. The Minotaur raises its axe to strike, but notices something. The protagonist approaches with a clenched fist, coming very close. The vice president tells them to keep distracting it, because she will strike when an opportunity appears. The Minotaur calls them small insects. A light is released and it is Julia charging forward, telling it to leave her older brother alone. She attacks with overwhelming power. Shui slides across the ground in rapid movements and strikes the monster, which lets out a roar, and he realizes he hit its weak point, sealing its movements. Julia launches her magic again together with Mina, and the two attack in unison, causing massive impacts against the terrifying monster. The Minotaur spits plasma and says that once its leg recovers, it will eliminate all of them. Maya says she will not allow that. Maya releases her water magic, striking it head-on. The monster slams its axe into the ground and says that a mere jet of water is nothing, and that now it will devour her, advancing dangerously close. Julia, gathering all her power, asks what he thinks will happen if he is electrocuted while completely soaked. Julia charges and declares that he will pay with his life for killing those soldiers. A terrifying power is unleashed, and the monster is struck head-on. The protagonist understands that she drenched it with water to amplify the electrical attack's power. The Minotaur crashes to the ground with a terrifying boom. Shui thinks that devising a strategy like that in the middle of a crisis is exactly what is expected of an honor student. Chi prepares himself, climbs onto the monster, and says he will deliver the final blow. Then Mina notices something wrong. A terrifying aura begins to spread, accompanied by crushing pressure. The protagonist's eyes widen as he feels that mysterious pressure and wonders what it is. Shui is also shocked, and a terrifying presence seems to appear before them. At the same time, outside, Kai feels the same pressure and wonders if it is an earthquake, deciding to call for reinforcements immediately. They need to hold on. Inside the cave, the absurd pressure keeps increasing. The Minotaur rises even stronger, releasing overwhelming pressure. The protagonist is thrown back but manages to stay on his feet. Shui's ear begins to bleed, spitting plasma. He was injured merely by the sound waves of the monster's voice, and she realizes that the enemy has grown significantly stronger, asking if everyone is all right. The people around them are also injured, as the barriers have been shattered. The vice president falls to the ground. Maya is also down, along with Julia. All of them are injured. The protagonist watches in silence. An extremely loud noise echoes and Shui assumes a fighting stance. The monster is enveloped in an absurdly intense aura. Chi charges toward it and attacks, saying he will eliminate it. The Minotaur smiles. The protagonist, consumed by fury, rips a piece off it, clenches his fist and attacks again, causing a violent explosion. Shui notices the monster trying to strike him but manages to dodge, and Chi thinks it is as if that creature does not feel pain at all. The protagonist stares at it. The Minotaur is absurdly strong, and Shui notices its arm regenerating. The monster grips its axe and attacks. Chi is pushed back by the wind, and the protagonist realizes he is spitting plasma merely from the air pressure, having underestimated the extent of the damage he suffered from the earlier roar. The monster says it is not bad and comments that the plasma of the strong makes its heart race. Another explosion occurs, but Shui manages to evade. The Minotaur chases after him with the weapon in hand and attacks again, but Chi still manages to dodge thanks to his speed. Rocks begin to fall, and the protagonist realizes that the stones that collapsed earlier are being pushed toward the others. The rocks keep crashing down, and one nearly hits the girls, passing dangerously close to Julia as Shui moves rapidly. The monster opens its huge mouth, emitting a deafening sound, causing impacts and an absurdly terrifying pressure. Chi uses his power to try to contain it and thinks that the roar is being amplified by the echo within the rock walls formed by the earlier collapse. A terrible impact occurs. The protagonist coughs up a large amount of plasma, and the monster takes advantage of the opening to advance. Plasmas spill everywhere. The Minotaur becomes confused and says that with something like that, thinking about it carefully for that very reason, the monster starts laughing and attacks again. But the protagonist manages to dodge and tells him to save that line for after he is defeated. An explosion happens. The Minotaur raises his weapon, and Shui says that as long as he is alive, he will never allow him to lay a hand on his sister or the others. The monster observes, and Chi takes advantage of the opening and advances, attacking him. The protagonist tears off a piece of him, and the monster screams in pain. The Minotaur looks shocked. Shui throws the piece of his body to the ground, steps back, looks behind him, and advances again. One of the monster's teeth is shattered, and the speed at which Chi moves is surreal. The Minotaur smiles and lunges, grabbing him with his hand, but the protagonist manages to escape. The monster realizes that his hand has been torn off, and amid the smoke, Shui is still standing. The Minotaur advances again toward him with his mouth wide open. Chi charges forward, their blows collide, and the monster says that he already expected this. The Minotaur notices something, and the protagonist smiles as he advances, releasing a surreal and intense power, slicing the monster in half. The Minotaur screams in pain, and Shui attacks once more with his immense power, completely destroying the monster in front of him. After some time, still inside the cave, Julia is lying down and Maya asks if they're still alive. Julia asks where her older brother is. The protagonist widens his eyes and delivers the final blow to the monster, and plasmas spray in all directions. Julia notices her brother ahead and calls out to him. Threads of plasma fall to the ground and begin to climb up Shui's body. Qi screams at the top of his lungs, and the pressure increases. In the Hall of Wrath, fire moves throughout the place around a statue until a hand rises from the flames. A monster emerges there and says that he has returned to this filthy world, calling himself a martial god. This is Valsaba, the demon lord of controlled wrath, who claims that he will tear him apart without fail. A woman appears at his side and says that it is delicious. This is Gisilda, a superior demon lady who comments that he awakened because of the fury of the key they chose. The demon lord of controlled wrath walks forward and asks whether he truly possesses enough latent potential. Gisilda smiles and tells him to watch because at that very moment he is freeing himself from the claws. In the real world, violent impacts occur, and the protagonist is still standing. Julia hugs him and begs him to stop and wake up. Maya asks for calm, then widens her eyes and says that Lucas is about to strike his own sister with all his strength. Shui has his fist clenched and is completely out of control, and Julia cries desperately. When the tears fall, Chi thinks of his sister and returns to a normal state. The protagonist collapses to the ground, the smoke dissipates, and Julia calls out to her brother. The claws begin to come out of Shui's body. Julia keeps calling to him and Chi apologizes, saying that he has regained consciousness and needs to retreat. An energy runs through his body, an intense power emanates from his eyes, and the claws finally disappear. Julia asks if he is alright, and the protagonist replies that he is. Julia hugs him and says that he truly scared her. Shui apologizes and promises that he will not do something like that again. Later, in another world, a voice says that a message from Kai has just arrived, informing that Lucas and the others brought reinforcements and are on their way to help them. Gisilda comments that there is no need to rush because this key still needs more tests, such as the loss of family, and an image of Julia appears enveloped in a liquid. Somewhere else, people call out to Lucas, and when the protagonist opens his eyes, everyone is very happy. Shui sits up on the bed and asks where he is, until Chi feels something strange and remembers what happened before, the monster's claws wrapping around his body, and says that his body moved on its own again. The protagonist calls for his parents and his sister until they ask what the hell he is doing. They are at the Aaron Magic Academy in the infirmary. Kai says that he was almost asleep and that if he were not an injured patient, he would already have been beaten into pulp. Shui apologizes. Taroi walks away complaining that his nose still hurts. Later, still in the infirmary, Chi wonders why he had that dream and whether that strange power used in the cave is manifesting. He thinks that the sensation of losing his reasoning was exactly the same as when that bandit was finished and turned into a monster, but at that time he did not lose consciousness. This time, however, it seems that he had already lost control when his sister and Maya woke him up. His consciousness must have been consumed by that power while he was fighting the Minotaur. He remembers nothing except the emotion of rage. The protagonist reflects on this and wonders whether his consciousness was consumed because he was dominated by anger, and whether it is possible to suppress it during combat. He decides that he must ensure that there is always someone capable of stopping him nearby whenever an important battle is about to happen. Shui becomes very thoughtful, remaining completely silent while feeling a strange sensation. Chi says that the only people he can work with on missions or training are the students there, because making them try to stop him in a state of fury would be extremely dangerous. Then the protagonist realizes something and thinks that he only needs to create a way to restrain himself. Shigart walks down the corridor. The nurses comment that the patient there is out of danger now, but even so, he is already a high school student, so they wonder how he suffered such severe injuries on a simple school mission. Shigart, while drinking, overhears the conversation. They also say they heard that he shielded middle school students carrying along the dead weight from the martial arts department, and that it is no wonder he got hurt. An aura approaches through the corridor. Shigart senses the presence of a high-level martial artist and thinks that this is impossible. The nurses say that the windows are already closed, but suddenly a strong wind arises, and Shigart immediately sets the bottle down. Then, elsewhere, the protagonist is releasing his power and says that everything is fine, thinking that the cloning technique was a success. Shui observes his own clone and thinks that, according to the ancient books he read in the library, the strength of a clone is, at most, half that of the main body. With 3 bodies, the power is distributed equally, so the strength of each would be only 1/6. This is a bit too weak to stop him if he goes berserk, but it can still buy enough time for the others to escape. Then the protagonist notices someone approaching and realizes that it is the professor. Shigart calls out to him and says that ever since the IT entrance exam, through the magical creature training competition, and now this mission, strange things always happen when he is nearby. So he will ask directly who he is and what he came to do at that school. Shui lowers his head, remains silent for a second, and then Chi says that he has no idea what he is talking about, that his goal at the Aaron Magic Academy is simply to master the use of weapons and become strong. The professor moves quickly and strikes him, asking if that is what he means by becoming strong, and saying that before that he wants him to show his true ability. The protagonist asks what he means by true ability, and thinks that the professor is sharp, as expected. If he can earn the respect of someone like him, his future school life will be much safer. Then someone approaches and asks who he is. Shigart realizes that he completely forgot that today is a holiday, so guardians can freely enter and leave the school grounds. Catherine asks if he could simply step away from her son. Shui explains that he is the professor of the martial arts department class and that he was just giving some guidance while evaluating him, teaching that one should not confront a strong opponent head-on. Shigart wonders if this boy is hinting at him and thinks that it seems he noticed the mother's arrival from her footsteps long ago. Catherine asks if that is really the case, but says that since it is a day off, he should be resting properly. Shigart understands that, in other words, she is telling him to leave. Since he did not cause any serious trouble and while he is his teacher, he will not allow problems to arise, he takes his leave. Catherine asks if he should not be selfish and irritate the professor, and the protagonist replies that he should not. Catherine then asks why the two of them risked their lives in that cave and says that she herself stayed at the Miranda family estate until things calmed down, wanting to come see them as soon as possible. Julia asks if that means she was nearby for days and says that she wanted to see her much earlier. Catherine tells her brother to do something and Shui tells her not to look at him, asking if their father is not with her. Catherine says that the situation on the front line does not seem good and that he went to war after leaving her at the Miranda estate. Chi thinks that the Miranda family accepts their mother but still does not acknowledge their father, an extremely stubborn family of mages. Catherine says that she has a gift from their father to celebrate first place in the entrance exam. The protagonist becomes excited. Catherine opens the box and reveals a precious sword passed down through generations of the Ryan family. It was damaged during a battle against the Beastmen army decades ago, and the repair is difficult, so it lacks practicality. But even so, it is a family heirloom, and his father places great expectations on him. Shui looks at the sword, takes it in his hand, and says that he will do his best not to betray his father's expectations. Julia comments that he is very lucky. Catherine looks at her and smiles. Julia asks why the two of them are laughing, and Chi says that the one their mother loves the most is his sister. Catherine says that she has a present for her as well, a beast pill, and that she baked those sweets especially for her. Julia becomes very excited, says that she loves it, eats the sweets immediately, and asks what that is. Catherine replies that her father prepared a beast pill as a gift for Jeremy as well, since Jessica did not come this time, and that she herself kept it. Julia says that she does not like Jeremy, but that she will deliver it, and Catherine tells her to be a good girl. In the male dormitory, a voice announces that he has a visitor, and people ask if it is not Julia, who placed first in the elite department, wondering what she wants there, and commenting that they thought he had mentioned that she is his little sister, saying how incredible it is to think that that genius is his sister, and that they can call Julia next time they have a mission. Jeremy pushes his arm away and releases herbs. The students do not understand and ask what is wrong with him. Jeremy becomes furious because his father and mother did not come to see him even once, and he wonders if, just because Lucas placed first in the entrance exam, they gave the ancestral sword to him. He thinks that he is trash, that he is the only one loved by everyone, and decides that he will steal everything back from him. Catherine says goodbye to them. Time passes in the blink of an eye and their mother returns to the Miranda estate, but says that she will stay in Darktown for a while, so even if they cannot see her every day, the two siblings are happy. As for Mina, who was seriously injured, the protagonist makes a new elixir, and since they said it was a gift from the Miranda family, no one questions the incredible effect. The vice president comments that it is impressive. A month and a half passes. At the Allen Tower, Collins and Sharp are amazed by the tower. Kai says that, as the symbol of the school, it shines just like he himself does. Shui says that this is a lie. It is a huge tower, and he noticed it from the day he enrolled. Someone coughs. It is Tishy. Shigart orders everyone to be quiet, saying that they are not there to play, that this tour is part of their education, and that everyone should sit in their places. Sharp comments that there is an entire crowd from the martial arts department present, looking at them as if they are chasing dreams far beyond their means when only a handful actually have talent. Taroi, irritated, says that there they go again, looking down on the martial arts department. The protagonist asks for calm and thinks that, as expected, as soon as the Allen Tower opened, everyone started targeting the martial arts students. To them, the martial artists were just lucky and managed to get 20 slots, and even magic class teachers complained to the principal, saying that martial artists are not needed in the empire and demanding that the slots be handed over, something truly shameless. But Shigert does not seem worried about the slots being occupied. He trusts the school and the principal very much. The students sit around the professor, and Shigert explains that every year third-year students are the first to enter the Allen Tower to set an example for the new students. A voice calls for the third-year students to prepare. Jeremy says that 3 years have passed since he enrolled in the magic school and that he will finally be able to enter the Allen Tower, while the partners beside him think that this only happened because he has never ranked among the top 100 so far. Someone calls out to him, and a partner comments that it is his genius little sister. Julia tells him to do his best. The partners say that his little sister is cheering for him and that he must not disappoint her. Julia thinks that he does not react to anything and that she is only cheering for him because her mother asked her to, and that is fine. She did exactly what she was told. A student comments that he hopes he will be teleported to a favorable place. Jeremy says that they do not need to worry, that he has been quite lucky lately and thinks that he just needs to wait in the Allen Tower because he will definitely surpass Lucas. A voice orders everyone to place their magic staves in front and close their eyes. Jeremy wonders about that voice and where he has heard it before. The principal watches them through the screen and says that it has finally begun. A circle with an absurd aura is emitted, and the principal also releases power through his eyes. An overwhelming energy rises, and at the center of the circle an intense light is emitted, spreading around the tower. The protagonist observes and thinks that it is an extremely powerful fighting spirit, that there is a martial artist in this school stronger than Shigert, and then wonders why he was so certain that they, the martial artists, could enter the tower, and why the one who can open the doors of the Allen Tower is the strongest martial artist. Elsewhere, 2 people are sitting. One of them comments that recently more and more voices have been demanding that the entry slots of the martial arts department be revoked, and asks if he could say more about the anomaly from last time. The principal remains silent and then says that he has already stated that no anomaly occurred that caused any damage to the school. For now, everything should be kept as it is, and by doing so, the Allen Tower will be opened as planned. The man thinks that if they do not give the martial arts department a chance, no one will be able to enter the tower, and that he has been handed an extremely difficult problem. Inside the Allen Tower, someone is summoned, and it is Jeremy. He thinks that it seems only his consciousness entered that space, but there is no difference at all compared to reality. Even his magic staff is exactly the same one he always uses. His partner asks if he is surprised, since it is his first time, and comments that what is incredible about the Allen Tower is how realistic it is, saying that they need to hurry to find their teammates. Jeremy replies that he is very bossy. Then someone observes them. It is the protagonist, who thinks that this is interesting and that, even from outside, by sensing the waves of mental energy, he can see what the students inside are doing, and that poor Jeremy has been looked down on from the very beginning. Shigert explains that anyone with sufficient ability can see what is happening inside just by sensing the mental energy, and before that he gives a brief explanation. When the test begins, everyone will be teleported to a random location in the space and may decide whether they want to go alone or form a team. If they form teams, the maximum allowed is 3 people, and if they want to advance to the higher floors of the tower, they must work in groups as much as possible. Kai asks if they can form teams, saying that obviously Lucas will join him. Shui comments that based on the tournament rankings, he thinks that the 3 of them and Kai ended up in different groups. Taroi asks if that means he is too good and ended up alone. Shigert thinks that with that expression, Lucas probably was indeed alone. Linda had said that only 5 students from the elite course can do that, and he is one of them. The protagonist tells them to look because someone is coming out. It is 3 third-year students, and Kai comments that it was very fast. Shigart explains that the phantom enemies inside the Allen Tower change their strength according to the student's ability, and that every year there are those who underestimate this and are knocked out immediately, while Shui thinks that he will observe how his half-brother is doing now. In the central tower, Chi thinks that he has found his teammates and that they seem to be heading to the 2nd floor. He really is a lucky guy. They enter a dark place. It is the 2nd floor of the Allen Tower. Monsters hidden above leap out to attack. Jeremy extends his staff using plant magic to wrap vines around the enemies' bodies. His partner uses a wave of earth, striking the trapped monsters head-on. The elite skeleton warrior is defeated. The boy comments that it was close, that the 2nd floor is as dangerous as the rumors say, and that they should hurry while they still have magical power and energy. In the central area of the 2nd floor, they fight and defeat the Beastman Scout. They manage to defeat more monsters, skeletons try to attack them, flames are released, eliminating them, and thus they reach the 3rd floor. Outside, a voice comments that he was knocked out quite quickly, but that at least he definitely will not finish in last place, and asks if he's not happy that he stayed quiet all this time. Jeremy replies that of course he is happy and thinks that his father fights enemies like those all the time, feeling that he has taken one step closer to him. Several hours later, the protagonist has his eyes closed and thinks that, through the mind, he can clearly understand the sensation of the energy up to the third floor of the Allen Tower. In the trials, phantom enemies with different characteristics appear each time, and even the same type of enemy becomes stronger with each floor ascended. He wonders whether these phantoms are created from real beings that exist in the world, because, if so, how terrifying the combat experiences of that martial artist who opened the Allen Tower must have been. Like Shigart, he probably also perceived his true abilities, but now everyone merely watches him in silence, and he wonders whether this is goodwill. A voice calls for the last group to gather at the entrance. They step forward, and the vice president has already advanced to the entrance of the 4th floor. Mina and her team, who achieved the best results in the domination tournament, will certainly also reach the others. Julia tells her to do her best. The vice president smiles and thanks her, and the inspector asks if her injury has already completely healed. Mina replies that yes, she has fully recovered. The students comment that she is a friend of the genius freshman and is also favored by the teachers, finding it incredible that she has become vice president already in her 2nd year. Her abilities are unmatched except for those of the president at that time. But even so, she is not popular. Mina thinks that someone is bad-mouthing her again and that this time she will definitely reach the 6th floor and defeat the Theodoro of that era. On the 3rd floor of the Allen Tower, the monsters advance. The vice president manages to dodge and tells everyone to avoid unnecessary fights and use acceleration magic to quickly reach the 4th floor. They move at high speed and reach the 4th floor in just 30 minutes. As expected of the strongest 3rd-year group outside, Kai asks if his partner wants a bit. Meanwhile, inside the tower on the 4th floor, a huge monster stands ahead. The people beside her say that it is an elite 4th floor beastman, about twice as large as those on the 3rd floor, and now they understand why most students are knocked out there. Mina attacks the monster and the elite beastman is defeated. Her teammates comment that it was incredibly fast, so it is true that her abilities have improved significantly since the last mission. The vice president thinks that to save time, instant eliminations are the best approach. Compared to that previous Minotaur, this is nothing, and she says she will leave the cleanup to the two of them while she searches for the passage to the 5th floor by defeating the remaining enemies. The Beast Scouts are finished off by Mina, who defeats even more of them. They continue climbing the tower and the vice president smiles and says that they have finally reached the 5th floor. People outside observe and Shigart comments that 3 people have reached the 5th floor, far better than last year. Kai asks how many will manage to get there, and Shigart replies not to rush, saying that for a freshman, reaching the 3rd floor is already enough. If they keep improving their skills steadily, the enemies of the 5th floor will not be frightening. The protagonist thinks that it seems he himself has entered the Allen Tower before as well. The two look at each other until the 3 exit the tower and a girl asks how it went. Shui notices that, judging by her expression, the vice president apparently did not achieve her goal. Elsewhere, Theodoro, holding a magic stone, asks if she now understands that surpassing a true genius is not easy. Julia uses her magic to set off fireworks and congratulates Mina for taking 1st place in the 3rd-year test. The protagonist says that he heard she reached the 5th floor. The vice president thanks him and says that in the end, she still could not break Theodoro's record. Julia comments that he did not stop at the 5th floor either and says that they are tied. Mina replies that no, because when she saw the sword leading to the 6th floor, she could not even remain standing. Back then, Theodoro truly climbed the stairs and almost managed to open the door to the 6th floor, and she thinks that, in other words, the Theodoro of that time was inferior in stamina, tactics, and magical control in every aspect. Mina asks if they found their teammates, and Julia comments that she will join Iowa. Shui thinks that the news that the Miranda family acknowledged his sister must have reached Iwa's ears as well, and says that he himself will join his roommates. Julia asks about Kai and whether they fought or something. Chi replies that their rankings were very different, so they ended up in different groups. Elsewhere, Taroi hugs the protagonist's leg and says that this is why he abandoned him, asking who he should team up with. Tishi asks if he wants to play with them, saying that they were looking for a strong frontline fighter, and that she would really like him on the team. Kai stands up and says that if she insists that much, he thinks he can play with her. Shui thinks that he shifts gears quickly, as always. On the training field, Shigart says that this is great, that it looks like everyone has found partners, and comments that they need to get fired up, asking if they all know what people say about them behind their backs, and that none of them want those insults to become reality. Then the professor notices something, and Tishi steps forward, saying that they will train so hard that nothing will turn out the way those guys expect. Her partner says that they will prove with real ability that they deserve the slots in the Allen Tower. Everyone becomes fired up. Chi thinks that all this time the professor firmly insisted that the Allen Tower trials proceed as planned. He not only prevented rumors from shaking the confidence of the martial arts students, but also turned the situation around and used it to ignite their fighting spirit and morale, and it worked brilliantly. The phantom enemies in the Allen Tower are diverse and highly intelligent, so to build teamwork, they focus on group training. During training breaks, the professor taught the characteristics of different races, and sometimes even acted as the enemy himself, and fought them directly. Every day was brutally difficult, but no one complained. Then, the day of the freshman test arrives on the big screen. It is written that the results of the martial arts department in the Monster Domination Tournament are recognized as valid, and the right to participate in this test is formally confirmed. Students walk and stop in front of the tower. Shigart says that as soon as they enter, they must find their team at the central staircase. If they can run, they should run without hesitation. If they cannot run, they must fight as if their lives depend on it and, at the very least, defeat one enemy. A boy beside them asks if his partner heard that, saying that not even their class instructor trusts their strength, and comments that he cannot wait to see what happens when they encounter magical beasts with real strength and no restraint, betting that the entire martial arts department will be wiped out in less than 3 minutes. Kai tells them to listen carefully, calling them pathetic losers. The proctor calls the 12. The protagonist walks forward with his 2 teammates. The principal watches from above and comments that it has been years since so many martial artists entered the Allen Tower at the same time, that the legacy left by the god of war may finally fulfill its purpose, and asks whether they are ready to face the first great challenge of their lives. Inside the tower, students run, someone jumps onto a tree, and it is Shui, who realizes that everyone is following the professor's orders, avoiding enemies and heading straight for the central staircase. In that case, all he needs to do is take the opposite path. Most of the first floor of the tower should be goblin territory, creatures known for using magic to block vision before attacking, and they indeed appear. Chi jumps down from the tree and tells his partners to wait for him, that he will do a quick test and come back. A monster approaches through the smoke, smiling as it watches him from behind, and the protagonist, standing still, thinks that it is exactly as he imagined. When a clone eliminates an enemy, no notification of point gain appears. The energy that makes up the phantoms of the Allen Tower feels strangely familiar. As expected, it is the same energy used to create his clones. These phantom enemies were likely created by the martial artist who opened the Allen Tower. Since his clones and the enemies share the same type of energy, using cloning abilities should not be noticed. He will leave a clone to protect the 2 partners while the true body continues climbing higher and higher. The plan is perfect. Moreover, if it is the same energy, he should also be able to transform the clone into a magical beast and, as expected, freely change its appearance, allowing it to move without restrictions inside the tower. In the principal's office, Otani watches through the screen and thinks that he had already noticed Lucas frequenting the library to read martial arts manuals. But mastering cloning so quickly is still impressive. He wonders what the boy will do next, whether he will accumulate points for his teammates again this time, and concludes that helping them too much would not be good for their growth. In the forest, people scream when they see a giant. Students run in panic. Elsewhere, monsters stand still, staring at a group. A student hides and says that they have been surrounded by 3 monsters at the same time and does not know what to do, because in terms of strength, dealing with 2 goblins is already the limit. Then one of the monsters senses the presence of something, and an extremely intense aura is released nearby. The students freeze and comment that, because of the dense fog, the giant cannot see them. First-floor giants have low intelligence and move slowly. The plan is simple. First create distance from the giant, then deal with the goblins. The students fight the goblins until one of them stops moving, and the monster takes advantage of this to charge forward quickly, but one of the goblins has its leg cut off. Then, the student draws his sword and is about to strike its head, but the goblin grabs the blade. The boy retreats, the goblin tries to attack him again, and the partner, while fighting another monster, shouts for him to dodge. The boy manages to evade and defeats the goblin, throwing it aside. They realize that they really eliminated it, and just as the professor said, if the 3 work together, they can clear the first floor. Excited, they watch the group's points increase. To win, it is not only strength that matters, but also calm judgment and courage at the right moment. From a distance, the protagonist observes everything and thinks that using clones to train his teammates does not count as cheating. He hopes that this test will show them how to truly fight, and he even finds the situation amusing. Outside, someone watches the tower. It is Greg, who comments that there is a martial arts team surrounded by 3 monsters. Lila says that it is pure bad luck, and Andre adds that even he himself cannot easily deal with 3 at once, stating that there is no way those weak martial artists can manage. They will probably be knocked out and come running back soon, and Greg thinks they are idiots, because even if the martial arts department manages to enter the Allen Tower, they will only end up embarrassing themselves. That teacher's confidence is painful to watch, almost cringeworthy. Shigart, on the other hand, thinks that facing 3 enemies at once still offers some chance of victory if they act calmly. A noise echoes, and Greg becomes indignant when he realizes that the students actually managed to eliminate them. The three gain confidence for a moment until the goblin begins to inflate its mouth. They do not understand what is happening until the goblin releases a dense fog. The three realize it is a smokescreen and wonder if it is trying to escape. Without hesitation, they charge together. One of them throws his sword at the goblin, and then the three close in, executing a spiraling slash that makes the pressure around them increase drastically. The boy assumes an attack stance and delivers the final blow. The goblin is defeated. Outside, Greg asks in disbelief whether they defeated two advanced goblins so quickly, questioning if it was really a martial arts team and claiming that it is impossible. Shigert merely smiles and says it was a good job, commenting that there is already a team from his class that defeated two enemies and that if they fight the way he taught them, the enemies of the Allen Tower are not that frightening. The seated students get excited and say they knew they could do it, stating that they will also give their best. A student from another class comments that they were just lucky this time, and a partner retorts by asking whether he was not saying just moments ago that they only had bad luck. Shigert feels that a strange energy disappears near those three at that moment, but chooses not to comment that Lucas probably did something again. Inside the tower, the protagonist sneezes and jumps down from the tree, wondering if his sister is talking about him again. He remains standing until someone calls him, and it is Sharp, along with his partner, saying that it is good that he is fine because he took so long that they became worried. Chi thinks that he was teleported very far away and asks about the others. Collins replies that one team is still missing, but aside from that, everyone has already reached the meeting point and the three returned safely. The protagonist thinks that this is good. Everyone is exhausted, but no one suffered serious injuries, and Slight's team and the others should arrive soon. Collins asks what happened. Shui replies that it is nothing and says that as soon as everyone is gathered, they will proceed to the second floor. Outside, students from another class comment that the martial arts department has not lost a single team yet, thinking that they simply fled too quickly, but they bet that now they must be panicking. Andre asks what the current situation of the martial arts department is, and Greg replies that it seems everyone has already reached the second floor. Andre questions whether those weaklings really escaped all the enemies on the first floor. Greg thinks that even first-year magic students usually have dropouts there. If the martial arts department continues to improve like this, it will start taking resources from magic classes, becoming a real threat. Inside the tower, monsters appear and the protagonist is hidden behind a tree, realizing that there are many enemies nearby. From the second floor onward, teams are teleported randomly according to the group's performance, and the stronger the team, the harder the challenge becomes. He needs his clone to start finding the other teammates quickly. The wolf moves swiftly to hide, and the partners ask how the situation is on his side. Shui replies that there are many enemies moving in groups, and that it is difficult to completely avoid combat there. If the Allen Tower tests exist to provide real combat experience, running away all the time would go against their purpose. Collins agrees, saying that constantly escaping would only frustrate the test. Suddenly, an attack is launched. The two worry about Lucas, but the protagonist says he is fine, commenting that he did not even notice two enemies getting so close. Sharp says that if it were him, he would already have been eliminated. Shui looks ahead and sees monsters with powerful auras, wolves advancing in groups toward them. Chi realizes it and attacks immediately, grabbing a wolf's paw and thinking that they are cunning, using a feint first and calling for reinforcements right after. The scout is eliminated. Holding the wolf's limb, Shui says that those are only the vanguard and that if they do not finish them quickly, they will be hit by reinforcements in a swarm. Sharp asks what happened. Collins realizes that his dagger is gone, and Chi remembers that he grabbed it in panic and accidentally threw it away. At that moment, he senses another presence and warns that one more enemy is approaching right at their feet, asking for full attention. Sharp tries to hold his ground under the intense pressure, but a wolf already leaps onto his back. Sharp thinks that it is exactly as the professor said. The enemies on the second floor are on a completely different level from the first, stronger, smarter, capable of surprise attacks and even stealing weapons. Even so, Sharp says that even if they steal his weapon, they will soon regret it. The wolf senses something the next instant and ends up with its arm injured. Sharp comments that it was a good thing he spent those points to buy the rock dragon gauntlets. The wolf hesitates for a moment and Sharp charges forward with his fist clenched, saying that when it comes to strength, no one can beat him. However, the wolf manages to dodge, leaving Sharp indignant. Collins advances from behind to draw the creature's attention, shouting that he is there and that now it is his turn. The wolf is pushed forward and Sharp takes advantage of the opening, charging with clenched fists and striking it head-on. The system notifies that the Beastman scout has been defeated. The protagonist praises the teamwork and tells them to keep advancing together as the martial arts department. Outside, some voices ask whether there have still been no dropouts in the martial arts department and say that with their level of skill, they should have been surrounded and annihilated as soon as they reach the second floor. Andre questions whether the martial arts students are so weak that the Allen Tower reduced the difficulty for them, and someone replies that if that were the case, the professors would have already complained. Meanwhile, Greg nervously bites his finger as he watches the students climb the tower. Inside the tower on the second floor, a monster charges with an axe, but is struck first by Shui, who slams it into the ground. Collins advances against another enemy, but the skeleton nearly hits him with its sword, causing a massive impact. Even so, Collins barely manages to dodge. The skeleton is confused, and Collins takes advantage to rush in, cutting it into pieces, even though the creature's final movement is still a sword attack against him. Sharp runs quickly to protect his partner and asks how many they have taken down. Collins replies that it is 3 and comments that, curiously, he is getting tired much more slowly today. The protagonist, Hidden, lets out a war cry, and they feel a wave of energy course through their bodies again. Shui thinks that everyone reached the second floor without even a scratch, and that, if he uses the hero's war cry technique, together they can clear that floor. They continue advancing as a group when monsters begin to approach, but someone hidden fires a long-range attack and knocks one down. It is an archer. The system notifies that Swift has been defeated. In Area C, a Cyclops is also eliminated. In Area D, more monsters fall. A student celebrates, saying that it is incredible and that he never imagined they would be able to defeat so many enemies. At this pace, they really can reach the third floor. Beastmen continue to be defeated, while a beast watches the group conversing from afar. Outside the tower, a voice announces that all 12 martial arts students have reached the stairs to the third floor, commenting that they do not look like freshmen and questioning what the hell the professor taught them, adding not to say that everyone will reach the third floor at this rate. Greg states that this will not happen because some martial arts students are already at their physical limit and will soon be forcibly eliminated. Inside the tower, someone climbs the stairs visibly exhausted. It is Collins, who ends up stumbling but is caught by the protagonist, who asks if he is all right. Collins replies that this is his limit and that there is no need to worry, he can continue. Shui remains silent while other students also say they have reached their limit and that he can go on alone to the third floor to prove his strength to those idiot mages. Sharp places a hand on his partner's shoulder and says that they came this far together and that they should at least try to reach the third floor as a team. Chi agrees, saying that after all they are a team and that they will pass through that third floor door as one. Everyone agrees, stating that they will use what strength they have left to advance together. The proctor announces that the number of students who reach the third floor of the tower is 12. They enter the third floor, which is engulfed in flames. The students look around in surprise until they notice monsters approaching. They launch their attacks, but end up surrounded by enemies on all sides and are defeated. Outside the tower, the 3 who were eliminated comment that the third floor was brutal, that they could barely see how many enemies there were, only feeling as if they were surrounded by 5 at the same time. The protagonist thinks that the third floor is the limit for the martial arts department. To avoid suspicion, he intentionally made it so that only his real body was defeated, while the clone still remains inside the tower. That way, by supporting the second martial arts group with the hero's battle cry, he can guide everyone to the third floor. Thus, everyone in the martial arts department achieves better scores, and he does not stand out individually. To be precise, the entire martial arts department stands out. People comment that all martial arts students reach the third floor, something that usually only the elite course manages to do. Greg thinks this is bad. They need to surpass the martial arts department, both in points earned and floors reached, because the magic classes cannot lose to the martial arts department. Inside the tower, a monster advances and they fight against it. Meanwhile, the principal is in his office and asks whether losing to martial artists is really so unbearable. He comments that Greg has been using magical power like water since the first floor and questions what he will do on the second and third floors, saying that he is getting irritated and losing his composure far too easily, and that not much can be expected from this year's magic class freshmen. Then the announcements are made. Group 3, withdrawals, all eliminated on the second floor. Group 9, no withdrawals, third floor, all eliminated. A voice announces that no student ranked 40th or below reached the third floor and that, in fact, some teams were completely eliminated on the first floor. Greg, extremely irritated, puts his hand on a student's shoulder and says that this is absolutely wrong, that it is a trap for the mage classes because the enemies only multiplied and became stronger when it was the mage's turn. The student asks him to calm down. Linda approaches and says that it is inappropriate to deny reality in front of the students, asking whether he knows that the Allen Tower is functioning normally or whether he is suggesting that his own sensory abilities have deteriorated. Greg replies that he is not. Then he looks aside, even more irritated, thinking that all martial artists are a nightmare. Linda comments that surpassing the magic classes is incredible and that is why she said they would manage to try. Shigart replies that no, this is the result of the students' own hard work. More importantly, the elite course's turn is coming soon, and he asks whether she should not be there. Linda says that those children do not need her worrying and that, besides, the class representative is already there. Julia comments that her older brother is amazing and that if he takes it seriously, he can go far beyond the fourth floor. A student thinks about why the best freshman had to be a martial artist of all things, and already feels defeated before the test even begins. The proctor calls her group to enter. The protagonist tells her to do her best and not to forget to eat the candy. The proctor finds the comment about the candy strange and wonders why he bothered to say that, until he realizes it is a magical power pill that rapidly restores energy. Pills of that quality are extremely expensive, since martial artists capable of producing them are quite rare nowadays, and giving such a precious item for a school test is unusual. Julia says that she was tricked again. Shui thinks that his sister has a lot of magical power, but since everyone takes medicine before tests, making her take one as well ensures excellent performance. Inside the tower, Julia unleashes a thunderfall, causing enormous pressure around her and defeating the monsters. Aiwa is surprised to see that she controls the falling lightning with precision, without damaging even a single blade of grass. Julia tells Aiwa to stay close to her. In the mountains, birds fly across the region, and a lizard immediately senses their presence. But before it can attack, it is struck by Julia's lightning and eliminated with a single blow. A bird lands on her staff, and Julia invokes 1,000 thunderbirds, dealing with all nearby enemies and saying that they will keep advancing. The red-haired boy comments that he is glad she is there because the previous lizard was resistant to fire and his fire magic alone would have been insufficient. Aiwa says that if it were the real world, she could simply control their minds and make them eliminate themselves. Julia replies that on a real battlefield, Aiwa would definitely be even more incredible. Aiwa thinks that the phantoms in the Allen Tower have no consciousness, so her mental magic is useless there. Everything she can do is outside, against real enemies, which makes her feel like a useless burden. Julia thinks that even so, she does not complain and still acknowledges Aiwa's abilities. Aiwa stays silent for a moment, starts walking, and says that she will let her have the spotlight this time. Then a voice asks them to wait and tells the two of them not to start running like that. They walk on until Aiwa notices something. Julia ends up bumping into her and asks why she suddenly stopped, whether it is an enemy. Aiwa replies that it is not, saying she thinks it was just her imagination, but she finds it strange because she keeps sensing something that is neither an enemy nor a classmate. Julia says that when they reach the 4th floor, they should find a route with as few enemies as possible. The proctor announces that 3 students have reached the 4th floor. The protagonist thinks it was close. Mental magic users really are sharp. The teacher comments that 3 freshmen have reached the 4th floor, which is incredible and proves that she teaches well. Linda replies that no, it is thanks to the students themselves who work very hard. The teacher says that this kind of achievement has not happened in the elite course for 30 years. Shui thinks that of course his sister is outstanding. The effect of the magic pill only increases magical power, but how far she and the others can go depends on real skill, and all he should do inside the safe Allen Tower is silently observe his sister's growth. Julia smiles. Aiwa tells her to be careful because there are 4 enemies behind them to the right. An archer beast approaches. Julia observes, but someone attacks first, causing an explosion. It's the red-haired boy who says she must be exhausted from the 3rd floor and that he will deal with those guys. Soon he realizes that the monsters did not die and are counterattacking, but he manages to dodge and uses his blazing fire magic, releasing intense flames that burn them, saying that his fire magic is also very good. Aiwa warns that many enemies are approaching and that they need to move fast. Julia asks how fast, and the redhead says she's ignoring her. Aiwa explains that about a dozen are coming straight at them at incredible speed. Something happens behind them. Aiwa notices and quickly dodges the attack. Spears are thrown, sealing the passage, and a huge monster appears, dragging a chained wolf. The monster stomps the ground, causing a tremendous noise, walks while dragging the wolf by the chain, and they realize that this is very bad because only a mental magic user could break that formation. Someone punches the grate. Aiwa says no, that there is another way. Meanwhile, Julia activates the barrier. The wolf tries to charge, but is repelled and thrown far away, crashing to the ground. Aiwa comments that high-temperature flames can also melt metal. Julia agrees and says they will bring the enemies down, while Derek should focus on breaking the grate. The monster opens its huge mouth, emitting a deafening sound, and the wolves try to advance. Julia uses her lightning but realizes in shock that they are not injured. Aiwa says that the one on the left is the fastest and weakest. Julia listens and attacks, blasting it away. She looks at her partner in confusion, and Aiwa says there is no time to explain. 3 on the left, 2 on the right. Julia smiles and releases her lightning, scorching the monsters. Aiwa stares at them while using her power and thinks that if these were 3rd floor enemies, they would already have been blown to pieces. As expected, the 4th floor enemies are on a completely different level. Aiwa says to remove the right side first. Terrible attacks are unleashed against the monsters. Julia feels her magical power running out and apologizes, saying that she can probably only seal the giant's movements now. Aiwa grits her teeth and tells her to watch for an opening and defeat the wolf. Julia replies that she understands, but wonders what Aiwa is talking about, thinking that she is already doing more than enough and that she herself should be the one apologizing. The wolf is attacked and lets out an extremely loud roar. The barrier begins to crack. Julia, exhausted, says that they defeated all of them and that the giant still cannot move, so they should be safe once they get out, and asks if she can boast about having protected her classmates like a true class representative. Aiwa replies that she is getting far too conceited. Suddenly, Aiwa's eyes widen as she realizes they are about to be attacked. She blocks the blow and wonders how this is possible because she did not sense a new group of enemies approaching. Aiwa is struck and tells Julia to run quickly. The monster defeats her, and Julia screams, "No." The redhead says that he only managed to open a gap just big enough for her to pass through and that she must hurry. Julia, crying, replies that no, they will fight together and move forward together. The redhead says she must not waste her magical power there. The monster attacks with a clenched fist. The redhead tries to block it with his flames and tells his partner to at least move forward until a terrible explosion erupts. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.